All sports, all the time.
There's heroes and there's legends. Heroes get remembered. Legends never die.
This is the Spoken Podcast.
Hold your ears, folks. It's showtime.
I'm your host, Lance Twidwell.
Man, that kid, he can ball, man. He can ball.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
Patrick freaking Mahomes, baby!
Let's talk some sports, because that's what we're here to do.
You are tuned in to The Spoken.
This is the Spoken Podcast. I'm your host, Lance Twidwell, here inside the Start K Media Studios with my guys, Trevor Twidwell.
What's good?
And Eddie Ortiz.
Yo.
Episode 203, full swing, full motion, man. We are so happy to be here with you, whether you guys are live streaming, YouTubing, or podcasting. We want to thank you so much for being in this time with us as we have the NFL Conference Championships to discuss. The biggest week to date of the NFL season, the 2022-23 NFL season. Man, we have a lot to get to. We want to thank all the listeners, all the followers, and all the subscribers that we've had to this point. But if you have not already gone and done it, we'd love it if you went to our YouTube channel, hit subscribe, hit the notification button as well. So every time we go live, you go live with us. We'd greatly appreciate it. We thank, again, everybody that's already done that. We got a lot to get to, man. We're gonna give you guys our divisional round reactions. We're gonna get to the Eddie Hour. We're gonna hand out some L's, and like I said, we're gonna get to the conference championship picks. We have two massive games against four very good opponents, very good teams. I would say the best teams in the NFL made it this far. That doesn't happen very often. We're gonna definitely discuss that. But I want to start back right where I began, guys. I want to talk about the divisional round matchup. Now, these were games that Trevor, Eddie, and I think had a consensus agreement on, if I'm not mistaken. I think Eddie had maybe one. Eddie had the Giants, and I know that Eddie originally picked the Bills to win the Super Bowl, but he did ultimately pick the Bengals to win that matchup based upon, because it's a long season, things change, predictions change. That's just how it goes. But outside of the Giants, we all saw these games going pretty much the same way they went, and I want to briefly just do an overlay of these games that we saw. And the Eagles-Giants game, I thought was going to be a closer one. I thought this was going to be a game that, two divisional foes have faced each other now the third time. The Giants are feeling good about themselves. I think they have the coach of the year. The Eagles had their injury concerns with Jalen Hurts and Lane Johnson and a couple other pieces. The defense may not have been playing as good as they normally have. And then you see the Eagles just come in here and absolutely dominate a Giants team that just probably shouldn't have been there to begin with. A team that has been pulled by a great coach, a guy that just absolutely coached his ass off throughout the season to get this team to where they were with an underachieving quarterback, probably an overrated defense. And it was on full display. The Eagles just went in there and kicked their teeth in. The better team won, and they won by a large margin. I believe it was 38-7. Then you see the Cowboys and 49ers game. It was the final game of the weekend. I was extremely confident the Niners were going to win this game. I told you guys from the beginning that I thought that Dak Prescott was not going to replicate what he did against the Buccaneers just a week before, because I thought that had more to do with the Buccaneers than Dak Prescott, although a very good quarterback, a top 12 to 15 quarterback in the league, a lot of good weapons, good defense. I didn't think they were going to go to San Francisco across the country, play a much better, more deserving, more worthy opponent, and do that same thing. And that's exactly what happened. The 49ers defense just absolutely dominated Dak Prescott and forced multiple turnovers. Should have had a pick six. Greenlaw, if he would have caught that, he would have taken that to the house. I think it was like 20 yards from the end zone. He just straight up dropped it. So that game, although it was only a 7-point victory for the Niners, and they didn't play great offensively, because the Cowboys defense, to their credit, is a very good defense. They can get to the quarterback. They can make things happen.
Top 5 defense.
It should have been a bigger margin than it was. The Niners they left a couple touchdowns on the field, honestly. Brock Purdy looked a little rusty at times, or looked rather like a rookie quarterback, if you will, and I think that he still overcame that, made some big throws. George Kittle came up big, and a lot of those had an incredible play down the middle of the field. I don't know what the hell Diggs was thinking on that play, just absolutely whiffed with his shoulder when he could have knocked the ball out, picked the ball off. Whatever he could have done, he didn't do. And the better team won, and I think they're still the team to beat in the NFC, and we're going to get to that in a minute when it comes to our NFC Championship predictions and picks. But then we have the Bengals and Bills. And I told you guys all year long, and I say this proudly, I said from our prediction show back in early September all the way up until this last week that I did not buy the Bills. Sure, Josh Allen is an elite quarterback. They had, coming into this season, had Von Miller, which is always scary as hell, had a very good defense, a very proven defense with Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Tremont Edmonds, Russo, you name it. They had a ton of talent on the defensive side, and Stephon Diggs, one of the 5 to 10 best receivers in the league, easily. But I told you guys that it's going to come down to coaching, and it's going to come down to pressure. And if this team can handle the pressure and expectation that everyone was just, for whatever reason, pouring on a team that's proven nothing and has won absolutely nothing. And then you saw in this matchup the Bengals going into Buffalo, snowy weather. Damar Hamlin's up in the press booth. By the way, CBS just kept trying to make a shot out of that, and they just could not see him through the damn snow. But there was a lot of emotions riding high for the Bills. Everyone's picking the Bills. Bills coming to the game as a 5.5-point favorite, which I can't understand for the life of me. But they came in there with all the pressure on the Bills. Bengals come in there scot-free. They have a banged-up offensive line. They have a defense that was making, at times, Huntley look pretty good in their week previous matchup. Probably shouldn't even been in the game because of the fact that if it wasn't for a goal line fumble that was taken all the way back, an historic play by Hubbard, they may not even be in this game against the Bills. So there was zero pressure on the Bengals in this game, and they came in there guns blazing from the jump, and it never was close after that. First drive, I think it was like a 6-7 play touchdown drive. Jamar Chase just rolls right up in the middle of the field for a touchdown. Joe Burrow was just dicing that defense all game long. It actually shouldn't have been an even bigger blowout. It was 27-10. It should have been 34-10 if they wouldn't have got. I'm sorry, it would have been 31-10 if they would have gotten that touchdown in the back of the end zone for Jamar Chase as opposed to the field goal. This game was never close because these teams were never close in my eyes. I know that the Bills had the better record to end the season, but I think the Bengals for the final 10 weeks of the season were clearly the better team. You saw Josh Allen having turnover problems. You saw the Bengals start to work on their turnovers to takeaway issues, and the ratio started going heavily in their favor after that Browns beatdown on Halloween. After that, the Bengals haven't looked back. And despite their inefficiencies at offensive line, it didn't matter because the Bills simply did not have the pass rush. And I said it, and I said it, and I said it after that Detroit game against the Bills and the Lions. When you saw Von Miller go down with his ultimately ACL tear, that there was going to come a point when the Bills are going to miss Von Miller and it's going to cost them. They're not the same team because he's been their best player this season. And what do you know? In the divisional round, that is when the Bills ultimately missed their best player, their best pass rusher, and it cost them a chance at getting to a Super Bowl for the first time in over 25 years. And then we have ourselves the Chiefs hosting the Jaguars. Now, we all know how this one went because the majority of you guys I know watch this game very intently and very closely. At the very beginning of the game, it looked like Patrick Mahomes and this offense was just going to do whatever they wanted whenever they wanted to. Patrick Mahomes had these magical throws where he's literally jumping in the pocket, completing passes over the top, little side angles. He's putting on the full menu. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is literally just showing him the appetizer, the house favorites. He's showing you the drink catalog. I mean, you had wine out there, you had Cabernets, you had your champagnes, you had everything. Patrick Mahomes is out there just doing it all. And then, of course, against the Jaguars, for some damn reason, Patrick Mahomes suffers another high ankle sprain. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, I was terrified. When I saw Patrick Mahomes get up, because he usually shakes shit off. I mean, he's a tough as hell dude. But when he's still hopping around, he's still hopping around. I know Trevor said that he thought it was his knee because of the way his knee bent. I thought that was a worry too, but when he ran to the bench and was putting his leg up, so he was holding up his leg, that means his knee had stability, and he's asking them to tape it up. I knew it was the ankle. I just didn't know the severity of it, and hopefully it wasn't a fracture. Tries to go back in. You can tell that there's something clearly not right with him. So he gets put out. We know the story. Andy Reid tells him, look, you're not coming back in this game until you go in the back in the locker room and get an x-ray. Pissed off Patrick Mahomes, which I totally get because it's in the heat of the game. It's in the second quarter. They have a lead. He wants to add to it. They're trying to get to another fifth straight AFC championship. There's a lot riding on this game for Patrick Mahomes, a lot of pressure on him because we know he's the man. So he goes back to the locker room. We're sitting here sweating. And I'm like, dude, look, it's 17-10, if I'm not mistaken at that time. The Chiefs are pinned down on their own 2-yard line, and Chad Henne's coming in. And look, all respect to Chad Henne, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I was sitting here thinking that the Chiefs are going to go score a touchdown on that drive. He's a backup for a reason, and he's 37 years old. Sure, he played well against the Browns two divisional rounds ago when they had that one little play from Tyreek Hill that I put the game on ice. Chad Henne didn't have to go and score a touchdown. They just had to get a first down. I love the running play he had on third down. It's 4th and 1. He had the nice throw. They always say anything is possible. I love that all that, but I was not thinking that was going to happen, to be honest with you. And as much respect and as credit as I want to give Chad Henne, because he was a 5 of 7 on that drive for like 23 yards and a touchdown to the Travis Kelce play at the goal line, which was awesome. But as Isaiah Pacheco put that team on his back in that moment. He did the Greg Jennings from YouTube. Greg Jennings. Like, he put his team on the back of he had 95 rushing yards in this game. 47 of them came on this drive alone. And I think he had a 39, 40-yard rush on that one play on the sideline that got the Chiefs over to the other side. They flipped the field, essentially. And that was the biggest play to me of the game, was what Isaiah Pacheco did. And I think he can play a massive role in this upcoming game against the Bengals, which we'll get to. But I want to give respect to Chad Henne for keeping composure, walking in the middle of a game, tense. It wasn't like the Chiefs were up 21, 24 points, and he just has to play with house money here and just keep the clock rolling. This is a very tense moment in the game. The Jaguars smelt blood in the water, and Chad Henne went out there and put this thing in a very comfortable position for Patrick Mahomes to work his way back, came back. I saw the stat that you guys, I know I posted it. Before the injury, Patrick Mahomes was, I think, 10 of 12 for 77 yards and a touchdown, which he was rolling. He's very much on his game. When he came back, he was 12 of 18 for 122 yards and a touchdown. So he didn't miss really anything, but you could tell that it was very much bothering him. So all week long now, we've been sitting here speculating on what Patrick Mahomes' injury was. But in this particular matchup, I have to give credit to what Chad Henne did. But not only that, you saw a difference in how the offensive line and defensive line played after Patrick Mahomes went down. Because I think a lot of times, definitely us fans, but even the team sometimes, this isn't a knock, it's just, I think it's a fact that when you have such a transcendently great player on your team, you get caught up in it sometimes. You kind of marvel at it. Even as a teammate, you know you got to do your job. I think sometimes you get reliant on the greatness of one individual. I know that we've heard that story about Michael Jordan, LeBron James. I'm sure soccer guys, Messi and Ronaldo, have had teammates that have admitted these things where it's, man, they're just so great. Sometimes you forget that you have to play your role sometime. And when that player goes down with an injury, regardless of the magnitude or the severity of the injury, I think it galvanizes certain teams or can crush certain teams. Certain teams lose all their confidence because they don't think they're capable of getting it done. This Chiefs team clearly knew, Andy Reid clearly knew they could still get the job done and pick up the MVP, because all season long, guys, we all know, the Chiefs defense has been up and down throughout the season. Their offensive line has had ups and downs throughout the season. Patrick Mahomes has always been the difference maker. He's been the one. He's been the MVP that's picked them up. It was their turn to pick up the MVP this time, and then picking him up is exactly what they did. The offensive line was creating holes and pockets for Isaiah Pacheco and Chad Henne on that first drive, and then you saw the defense just absolutely put the clamps down on Trevor Lawrence and his passing attack that looked like it was going to do some things in that second quarter. They absolutely stopped the Jaguars from taking a lead one single time in that game, and that's all praise, that's all credit to what Andy Reid and his coaching staff did, which I've told you guys is the best coaching staff in the NFL in my eyes. I think the 49ers are starting to give them a run for their money, but DeMeco Ryans will probably get a head coaching job, so that's going to lessen their severity. I think right now, as it currently stands, guys, Andy Reid and the coaching staff is the best in the league, and they showed that with Patrick Mahomes going down, and they advanced to their 5th consecutive AFC Championship home game. So now, like I said, we've really broke these things down as these matchups look like. I'm really excited to get to these conference championship games. Before we get to that, I definitely want to get Trevor and Eddie's takeaways from these 4 divisional round games. What did you guys see? What was some cliff notes, some highlights that you guys saw? If you want to just talk Chiefs Jags, you're more than welcome to. But if there's some notables that you guys saw in these other games, definitely drop that. I'll start with Trev.
Yeah, I'm not even going to speak on the Eagles Giants. That one was over as soon as it started. Actually, we turned that one off. That game was over.
It was bad.
Not even competitive in any way. Their first score was garbage time. So, yeah, the Cowboys-Niners, that was actually a very competitive game, very good defensive output for both sides. I definitely gave the Cowboys a puncher's chance. I did pick the Niners, and I made about, a few $100s on that game.
Not bad.
Yeah, Brock Purdy, man, just continued to show that he's not your average rookie. I've given him his praise. I mean, he's 7-0 as a starter for the Niners. That's not a fluke. After just 7 games, it's just not a fluke. 7 games and 2 playoff victories. You know what I mean? This isn't a fluke. So that kid is definitely steering the ship for Shanahan, and I'm happy for him. I like his story. He's a level-headed guy. So you root for guys like that you know that were doubted and were taken where they were in the draft, whether they're undrafted or damn near undrafted. I like rooting for guys like that. So I'm enjoying that story for sure, and the fact that he beat the Cowboys made it that much more sweeter. And then the Bengals-Bills game, that was maybe the most dominant and convincing win I've seen from the Bengals in a while, especially this year. Especially after seeing them barely pull that victory off against that banged up Ravens team without Lamar and a banged up backup quarterback in Huntley, it took us a miracle defensive play at the goal line, and if that play went the other way and they scored that touchdown, the Bengals lose that game. So we're talking about the Ravens, being in the next round, not the Bengals. That's how close that game was. So going from that swing, that defensive play, swinging that momentum for them, it just shows you how important momentum is in football. The carry momentum and just absolutely just go into the Bills stadium and just absolutely just sun them. In a snowy game, which you would think would work into the Buffalo Bills' favor, they thrive in a lot of those games, but for some reason, they could not get pressure on Joe Burrow whatsoever. I've heard a lot of ex-players talk about how that actually favors the offensive line when it's snowing like that. That gives them more of the leverage, which I agree, as far as, just overall.
That type of grass. That isn't natural grass, so there's not a lot of traction for the pass rushers.
And the way inertia works, obviously, with the traction and the force, because the defensive players are having to use more traction to create the inertia to go into the opposing offensive line. So it makes the defensive line's job that much harder. So that obviously played into a factor, I think. And then Josh Allen was horrible. He was horrible. Didn't throw a single touchdown. Had that one rushing touchdown, which was great. That was maybe his worst performance in the playoffs so far. And it could have come
at least since the Texans game.
It couldn't have come at a worse time. I couldn't believe. I really thought it was going to be more of a competitive game than that. I definitely was confident the Bengals were going to win because I feel like they're the better team down the stretch. The Bills are a much better front-running team. They like to get a lead early, but when they don't get that lead early, they don't get those gears going early, that's when they're in trouble because Josh Allen is not going to come save you.
No.
He's not. He's never proven it. He's never proven he's going to go save a team. If you need him in the big moment when you're down, you're trailing, you need that clutch, he's yet to prove that he has that gene.
Yep.
Just period. And it sucks because I like Josh Allen. I think he's a very talented guy. He's fun to watch. He's good for this league. But that kind of game, if that's the kind of stuff you're going to get from him, I mean, good luck. I'm glad I have my guy. But yeah, that was just a dominant performance from the Bengals. The way they ran the ball, the way they won in the trenches on both sides. Joe Burrow actually just did everything he needed to do. He was precise in a snowy game like that. I couldn't have much more praise for the Bengals in that game. It was a very dominant, convincing win. I think their best win, obviously their best win of the year, the way that how big a game that was. But I think that was the most convincing win as well, as far as going against a competent opponent in that situation. So kudos to the Bengals, man. That great game plan. That defense played really well. They were after them all day. So very convincing win and important win for the Bengals. And then the Chiefs game. Listen, I was very confident going into this game as a Chiefs fan. I felt we had the edge on damn near every. I think we did have the edge on every aspect of this game, whether it came to coaching, whether it came to quarterback, whether it came even to defense in a sense, offensive line, everywhere outside of maybe defensive line. Our defensive lines are pretty close. Even though we had more sacks than them, but they pressure quarterbacks on a pretty high level as well. So, and they're very good against the run. We were able to run the ball fairly well against them. We almost had 100 yards rushing just from Pacheco alone. So that's an important thing heading into this matchup, to see Pacheco get get the juices flowing, against a really good run defense, a better run defense than the Bengals is even. You know what I mean? So that's an important thing of note, to see that we were able to run the ball, and the fact that we had, Pat go down, he got rolled up on. Scariest sight. I definitely thought it was his knee for a second. Luckily, he's as young and as spry as he is right now, because that was a rough with Arden Key, all his weight falling down on his leg. Could have been much, much worse after we saw, what happened to Tony Pollard for the Cowboys in the very next game, or the next day playing that game. Almost the same kind of situation, getting rolled up almost the same way. But he ended up with a broken bone in his leg. So it could have been that, you know what I mean? So we avoided catastrophe there. Granted, a high ankle sprain is not something to bat your eyes at. It's going to be very painful for Pat to play through that. But if we know anything about this guy, man, he's done it before. He's played through this injury before. He's played through turf toe, which he said was his worst injury, where he has to curl his toes up and just to walk. So this guy is nails, man. This guy is tough. And he's proven that nonetheless every time he's dealt with some kind of lingering thing. So, Kelce, I mean, 14 catches, set a postseason record for anybody, not just tight ends. It's a postseason record. So I mean that alone is great momentum going into this week. Seeing him do what he did, 2 touchdowns, 14 catches. I mean, the guy the records he's going to set, not only at the tight end position, but he's trailing only Jerry Rice for, I believe, the most receptions, I believe, in postseason history, I believe. So that's in itself insane, as a tight end is only trailing Jerry Rice.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to tell you guys those stats real quick that Travis Kelce has, or he's on the brink of getting to, because whether people believe it or not, I think it just kind of creeps up on everybody, because Travis Kelce, it feels like he's only been around for a few seasons because of the Patrick Mahomes era still being really close. But okay, for instance, Travis Kelce all-time postseason rankings is second in receptions. This isn't tight ends. We're all players.
He's going to be the best pass catcher probably of all time in the postseason.
Second in receptions, third in receiving yards, third in receiving touchdowns. He has the most games, playoff games, with 10-plus receptions. He has the second most games with 100-plus yards, and the third most games with 2-plus receiving touchdowns. And when it comes to how much he needs to get to those numbers, he needs 31 receptions to take first, which is very, very possible. He only needs 53 yards to be second all-time in yards. 2 touchdowns to take the second place all-time in touchdowns. 8 to get the first, 2 games with 100-plus yards to get first, and 3 games with 2-plus touchdowns to get first. In other words, if Travis Kelce continues down this trajectory that he's on for the next 2 to 3 years in the playoffs, he's going to have every single receiving record in the history of the postseason.
At a tight end. You know what I mean? That's just yeah. So that was my biggest takeaway, was just the fact that, I know we got the Bengals game we're going to preview, and there's a lot of things talking about, did you touch Kelce? Did you touch Kelce? Did you hit Kelce? And all these things that are going around in their locker room or whatever that we've been hearing lately.
Yeah.
You don't think every team going into every single week facing the Chiefs, that's their mentality?
Right.
You don't think that each team that faces the Chiefs wants to stop Kelce? Yet he gets the upper hand, he gets the advantage almost every single time.
Especially without Tyreek Hill now.
Look, it's premeditated murder every time the Chiefs touch the field. Because the Chiefs know what they're doing. The Chiefs go out there and they have plays dedicated. And when the plays break down, the way that Patrick Mahomes, the way the improv between the two of them is just something that you can't really predict and or prepare for, because Kelce knows how to find those spots, and their chemistry is just something you can't really prepare for when the plays break down.
They even showed the Chad Henne touchdown. I don't know if you guys saw it, but on the Chad Henne touchdown, but I think it was Rich Baldinger broke the film down. You saw that Kelce was right on the hip of Orlando Brown Jr. When they hike the ball, he does a step back on his right foot to make it look like he's going to do a pass either a pass protect or a run protect. And that you see the linebacker shift towards the offensive line, and then he cuts to the out. So the momentum of the linebacker is going the opposite direction. He just turns around. Chad Henne is an easy dunk right there for Travis Kelce, wide open.
Yeah, we gloat all over Travis Kelce's physical abilities and his ability after the catch and things like that. But I think it's very underrated, his IQ with the game, with him being an ex-quarterback and having that edge. It's just a unique thing with tight end, being like an ex-quarterback, knowing the field, knowing spacing, knowing those things, knowing what's the sweet spots for the quarterback when they like to, when the plays break down, where to go, where to find the space and coverage. That's what makes them so great together. Because as much as we liked Alex Smith and he had the connection he had with those guys, with Tyreek and Kelce as well, they didn't have that.
Not at all.
When the plays broke down, Alex Smith was typically running at that point.
Everything was very structured.
Right. So just the fact that alone, I just want to we'll get into the next matchup obviously, but that was my thing. Just the fact that he went off like that, and everyone knows they're trying. Granted, the Jaguars' defense is, I think, the worst against tight ends all year.
Yes,
so that was kind of just Kelce just out there licking his chops against that matchup. And I do want to say too, we held Travis Etienne is a guy who's a 1,000-yard rusher this year, a guy who's been dominating and absolutely taking over games at points this year. We held him for 10 carries for 62 yards. That's extremely impressive from our defensive front there. We didn't allow anybody to go over 100 yards receiving. And Isaiah Pacheco did have 12 carries for 95 yards. So that, like I said, that is great momentum. And Jerick McKinnon didn't really do much in this game. Outside of Travis Kelce, none of our receivers did. Our next leading receiver was Kadarius Toney with 5 for 36. So a very, honestly, we put up 27 points, but a very mild performance from our offense, if I'm being honest. You know what I mean? So it just felt like a game where we didn't put too much on film. We played pretty much straight up football, nothing crazy. Travis Kelce got his, and Isaiah Pacheco had a big burst play, maybe like you said, the biggest play of the game, most likely. That flipped the field and changed the momentum when Pat was out. So that was, yes, I believe that was the biggest play of the game. Because that rips the heart out of the defense when they're like, oh, we need to take advantage of this. Pat's out. Nope. Flip the field. Right. One big burst run, changed the whole game. So couldn't be more proud of my guys, man. The defense played great. There was a couple plays that were busted coverage, and we allowed some things we probably shouldn't have. And there was a scramble play where Trevor ran for a big first down. It was like 3rd and 12 or something like that, and he ran for it. That sucks. I hate seeing that. But when things were tight and we needed to hold the guys out from the end zone and we needed to make a play, the defense stepped up. Jalen Watson had one of the best interceptions I've seen all year, no matter what team you're watching. The one-handed snag was incredible. I think that kind of got brushed over a little bit over the fact because Pat got hurt.
If a wide receiver would have made that
insane,
catch, if a wide receiver, let's say like CeeDee Lamb made that catch against the Niners, that's one of the top 10 plays on ESPN.
Or any other cornerback. If Jalen Ramsey makes that pick,
right.
I was like, oh, freaking.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a rookie cornerback after making a one-handed interception to ice the game, bro.
Right.
That's Pro Bowl plays right there. That's all pro corner plays right there. And the fact that he's juiced like that heading into this next matchup, I couldn't be more stoked. I was so impressed with our defense overall. I was very impressed with our running backs, and the fact that Andy Reid brought in the backup quarterback, the 37-year-old backup quarterback, to go out there and had the biggest drive of the game, going 98 yards. They thought they pinned us back. They thought they had us on the 1-yard line, 2-yard line. Nah, we went the length of the field and scored on your ass. And I was so confident, and so even more after the fact, after that drive. So, yeah, man, could be more impressed. I know we only won by 7, but we really won by more. If we're all being honest, we all watched that game.
Well, it was the back door field goal from the Jags too that made it double. It was they were covering until it was like 2.5 minutes left.
Yeah, the game was not as close as it looked in the final box score. So yeah, overall, man, a great team win. Everyone did their part. Couldn't be more happy. Definitely looking forward to this game this weekend.
All right, I want to focus on the Giants-Eagles game. Not just kidding.
Yeah, let's talk about your Giants, Eddie.
Let's break down those drives. Yeah,
that shit was over before the game started.
I was doing real quick. I was doing the post game show with Chief Concerns, Marcus Dash, and by I think it was the 20th minute the game started. The show went for like 50 minutes. It was already 21-0 by the Eagles within 30 minutes. I wasn't even watching the game yet, and Marcus gave me a little update. I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding! What's the point of watching this game? Trevor and I turned on the UFC card after that because it was just the game was over, man.
Yeah, that's what I was watching. Couldn't watch no more Giants Eagles. But I mean, if we want to talk about that, Eagles look great. The Eagles look unstoppable.
Yep.
The Giants had no solution, had no answers. And you would think because they're in the same division, which is what I relied on a lot of for my pick was same division. It's a lot harder to beat them 3 times in a year, So I thought this game was going to be a lot closer, a lot more competitive. But the Eagles went out there and took care of business. And goddamn, Bills-Bengals game. I did pick, like you said, I did pick the Bills to win the Super Bowl as my prediction earlier in the season. But as the season went on and how the season ended, the Bengals are just the best team overall. I think it's between them and the Eagles. I think they're both the best teams in AFC and NFC, and I don't think it's close. Just the weapons that Joe Burrow has in T. Higgins, in Jamar Chase, what's the tight end? Hayden Hurst.
Joe Mixon.
They got a great offense, and then obviously they upgraded in the offensive line from last year, but I know they're dealing with some injuries. But my God, did they make the Bills defense pretty much be non-existent? That defensive line was pretty much non-existent. I would have thought because of the snow, it's going to be a lot more slipping and falling, and a lot more hitting the quarterback if he doesn't get the ball out. Joe Burrow just made it look like it was easy. You know how when Patrick played the Broncos in the snow and he was like, I could spin it in anything? Mm-hmm. That was Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow could spin it in anything. He made that shit. I was like, fuck, does he even know it's snowing? The way he was spinning the ball, the way he was finding open receivers, the way he was just
he was getting out quick.
He was very very impressive to see in that game. He took the Bills out.
That was his best postseason game for sure.
I don't think I've ever seen a Joe Burrow game that great.
Well, being a lifelong Chiefs fan from Iowa, I'm sure Joe Burrow played a lot in the snow, acting like Trent Green. You know, I'm sure.
Yeah, he looked like the LSU Joe Burrow. He was confident out there. He didn't look scared or anything. He went out there, did his thing. He kept the game away from Bills. Josh Allen came out struggling. That offensive line just gave up on him. I don't know what happened. I don't know if because I'm sure the snow played a big factor on it because he couldn't leave the pocket as much because obviously Josh Allen relies a lot on running, and that Bengals defense did not allow that. And that offensive line was terrible for Josh Allen. I think that was a big reason as to why he wasn't confident in that pocket.
They had the healthier O-line,
which is crazy.
Yeah.
But it was terrible. He just did not look confident in the pocket. He was looking for ways to get rid of the ball, but his receivers weren't getting open. They just weren't getting open.
Don't tell it's Stephon Diggs.
And I don't know what the fuck is up with Stephon Diggs. Like, bro, if you were open, I'm sure Josh Allen could get you the ball because.
The early in the game, you saw Stephon Diggs had a breakaway.
Yeah, and then he
play.
overthrew him. Yeah,
badly.
I got
That's
it.
A touchdown.
But throughout the whole game, it's just Josh Allen just wasn't able to do it. He wasn't. He didn't have enough time like he usually has in the pocket. Yeah, it just that weather made it super impossible for Josh Allen. And we talked about it last week, how we said that Brian Dable being gone has made Josh Allen go back to the Josh Allen that got drafted by the Bills. And that's more accurate after that playoff game than ever. And it makes total sense. And we saw what Brian Dable could do with Daniel Jones.
Yep.
So
that's facts, dude.
So now we see how bad the Bills' offense misses Brian Dable. And I didn't think one coach could make a big difference like that, especially an offensive coordinator. But with him gone and now seeing Josh and go back to those struggles, tells me that Josh Allen was I don't know I don't know what happened to Josh Allen. I don't know where he lost that confidence. I don't know if Brian Dable made him watch tape or he made him
simplified the game for him. And so that's what happened, Eddie, is that you look at, because you're right, 100% correct about the offensive line struggling. They didn't do him any favors, but he wasn't doing them any favors either, because you saw on 3rd and short how many times in that game it was 3rd and short, and you saw somebody in the flat open, you saw a cross pattern wide open, and Josh was looking for the deep ball. So the offensive line is having to sit there and protect him for 2.5, 3 seconds, as opposed to 1 second, hit the short intermediate route, and you get a first down.
Josh is just waiting for something to break free downfield.
And that's his comfort zone. Yeah, and we've seen that all year, that if they fall behind, Josh Allen starts chucking the ball. We've seen it. We saw it against the Jets, and that's when he got hurt, because he was trying to chuck the ball, and the Jets, the Jets were there and were able to get him.
Right.
And that's how he hurt his elbow.
Right.
So once the Bills start falling behind, especially this season, we could definitely see a more not irresponsible, more of a lack in common sense for Josh Allen in that quarterback position.
Right.
No, I'm not
lack
trying
of
to
discipline on that offense. For sure.
It was just a terrible offensive show.
And I know people try to defend him by saying he doesn't have a run game around him, but here's the thing, guys. Did we not just see the Chiefs? Did we not just see the Chiefs in 2019 win the Super Bowl with a 23rd ranked rushing offense?
No.
I mean, the Bills have the Bills don't have a great running game at all. But James Cook came around. Singletary's always a reliable player, and like you said, Josh Allen can run. The problem is they don't pick and choose the right spots of when to utilize Josh Allen. And I don't know about you guys, I'm starting to get concerned for Josh Allen's longevity in this league. We saw Cam Newton, an even better athlete than Josh Allen. At 29 years old, his body was breaking down. Josh Allen's going to be 27 next season, and you're seeing him every single game get hit 15 to 25 times.
He's about to get paid.
And he's about to get paid. That's my point, man, is this team's not getting any cheaper either, because Von Miller's real dead money starts kicking in this next year at 34 years old. He may not even play next season.
Well, and I think they got some legitimate questions at head coach.
They do. That's the question.
McDermott's got to be on the hot seat.
Yeah, I think the Bills have to move on from him, but that's a different
It's not going to happen. That's the thing. They're not firing him. Yeah, they're not firing him.
That's a different conversation to have.
But
I am getting worried about the longevity of Josh Allen, because he's a supreme talent, but he's going to be healthy.
And it makes sense, because if you get hit a lot, look at Andrew Luck. He got hit a lot. lot. He got
Look at
sacked
Russell
a lot.
Wilson now. He's a lot smaller, but the point remains. Quarterbacks take punishment.
And it goes to the same question with Joe Burrow because he does get sacked a lot,
True.
and he leads the league in like the past 2-3 years with sacks.
Yep.
Look at Andrew Luck, same thing. He led the league in sacks, and
True.
he had to retire at what 29.
29. He was 29 years old. He didn't have to, but he did because
But
his
he
body
did.
was breaking
Oh,
down.
no, he
Same
had
with
to.
Cam Newton. That's
He
what
had to. His
compares
body
the
was
comp.
done.
The comp for me is Ben Roethlisberger and Cam Newton. Now, Ben had a long career, but Ben was hurt a lot.
Well,
He
Ben
missed
also
a lot
had-
of games.
Ben was also had a great arm talent. He was very good at hitting the quick.
Yeah,
hitting
he
the ball
didn't have
quick.
to
His
rely on
arm
his
was
run
much
or
different
anything
than
like that.
Josh
He was
Allen.
up here.
He was all IQ, baby.
Pre-snap stuff. He was
But-
very smart.
Yeah, this that Bengals defense just made a living hell for. They were rushing 3 and getting to Josh Allen. I think they sacked him once in a rush 3, which is crazy. They almost forced that fumble
I think
as
they
well.
hit him 14 times in this game.
It is insane. It's insane how good that Bengals defense was in that game.
And to this point, Josh Allen's postseason this year, everybody came into this postseason talking about, he's got the best touchdown interception ratio of all time in postseason history. He's got the highest quarterback rating of all time in postseason history. And the 2 postseason games this year, he completed 59% of his passes, had 3 passing touchdowns to 4 turnovers, got sacked 8 times. 7 of those were in the Dolphins game. He had 3 fumbles with an 81 quarterback rating. Josh Allen got smoked in this postseason. Like he got smoked.
The Bills, I don't know what happened to the Bills, especially going. I don't want to say that the Mar Hamlin news kind of like the bump pretty much brought the energy down a lot and cost this team to obviously go all chaos, but. I think that has to do with because it takes you out of the game.
Well, they were banged up too. I'm gonna give them that benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
They were a very banged up.
Micah
roster.
Hyde's been out all year. Von Miller's been out for the last 7-8 weeks.
That secondary was banged
and
up.
Mike and DeMar Hamlin.
So I'm saying,
I know the
one
emotional
of their
side
better
of things
safeties,
matters,
yeah.
but let's be real. He was leading the team in tackles, I think, through like week 13.
Yeah, so I'm gonna I will give them that, not an excuse, but that reason to why they probably struggled in the postseason for sure.
Yeah, the Bengals look
They're
amazing.
the better
that
team.
game.
And
They're the good team.
And now
They're
the Bills
good
have a lot of questions,
And-
like Trevor said.
yeah.
This is a big offseason because this was the year they're supposed to win.
Yeah.
With all the money the
Now-
way it is,
and
now
then-
they don't have it. And Jordan Poyer's going to be gone. He'll be 32-year-old free agent.
Yeah.
He's their best secondary pin. Trey White clearly isn't Trey White anymore, and he's only getting older. He'll be 28 next season. There's a lot
And they're
of
not going to be able
questions
to. They're
here,
not going to be able to pay some guys on that roster, whether
Right.
defensively or offensively.
And they
they're gonna
can't
be
get out of
due.
the Von Miller deal.
And then
They
Josh
can't get
Allen's
out.
contract hits this year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
he's
it's a
gonna get
40
paid.
million
Over
cap,
40 million
right?
in cap hits, man.
Whew.
So
Yeah,
they can't go and add another big piece to the wide receiver core or anything like that. Stephon Diggs will be 30 years old next
And
season.
Stephon Diggs wants to stay
Yeah.
in Buffalo.
So-
and outside of the, mental aspect of all this too, man.
Because the way, I mean, we're speculating here, but the way that season ended for the Bills and how Stephon Diggs came out and pretty much bashed.
Oh, he'll be back. He'll cool off this offseason, be ready
He's
to
a
go.
very hot-headed guy,
Yes,
but
he's
I'm just
hot-headed
saying
dude.
mentally how you come back from this, how you continue to take heartbreaking losses.
Yeah,
you
In
know,
divisional round, too, no less.
Yeah, to your contemporaries, to your peers, to the Joe Burrows and the Patrick Mahomes, the guys that keep getting wins and beating you and knocking you out when you're the favorite, you're the darling. And
We've seen this throughout
How do
history
you
where
keep-
teams
how do you
like that
come
keep
back from
knocking
that?
on the door and get knocked out, and regress. They never, ever overcome that. You
Right.
don't see that throughout history. And a great stat Nick Wright brought up this week is that there has not been a single head coach quarterback duo that has ever won a Super Bowl together that won their first after the first 5 years of being together. You know that? In the history of the NFL, this was year 5 for Josh Allen and McDermott.
This was their best window.
This is their best opportunity.
and
It's
everyone
over.
was on the nuts
And
this
yes.
year, for sure.
It's crazy because Phillip Rivers had a great quarterback. It's a great quarterback, and he had great teams around him,
It's
but
good
he never
coaches,
won
too.
a Super Bowl. He never won a Super Bowl. I'm not saying Josh Allen is Phillip Rivers because I think he's by far way
more
better
talented,
talented
But his
athlete.
career might go the same
but
way.
the career might go the same way. Have great teams.
We've
have
seen
great
Dan Marino
coaches.
never win a Super
Feels
Bowl.
like Justin Herbert to me.
Dan
but yeah.
Marino is one of the 5 greatest quarterbacks to ever live.
Yeah.
And this dude got
Yeah.
to one Super
That's a
Bowl and
good
got
comparison.
smoked.
Yeah.
And got smoked.
Yeah.
And you saw him break down after like year 12, 13.
Oh, dude, yeah.
He started breaking down bad. Yeah, Jacksonville game,
roster
that last
broke
game
down.
against Jacksonville, I think he had a 9 quarterback
It was the
rating.
nail in the coffin.
What I'm saying is I love Josh Allen. He's fun as hell to watch.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you're clearly seeing that the league is catching up to what they do, and this was the opportunity for them to get it and capitalize, and they didn't do it because this was supposed to be the Chiefs' down year. Bengals had a banged-up offensive line. You know, the Ravens have Lamar Jackson
We
problem.
won the AFC.
No,
we
and-
got the first seed because of an asterisk, but here you are losing.
But here you are with a home game against the Bengals, the team that also got
Barely
screwed in
survived
that
the
game.
Skylar Thompson Dolphins. Fuck out of here, dude.
Yeah, it's crazy. Then we got the Chiefs Jaguars. Obviously, I didn't watch that game. I was on a shooting range, having fun. But Yeah, I came back towards the second half. Right before the second half, I text Lance and Trevor. I was like, "What the fuck happened to Mahomes? Why is he not playing?" It was like high ankle sprain. I was like, "Oh my god." Obviously, I saw the entire second half. Obviously, he came back.
Like a G.
Yeah, and he led the team to a victory. He had that passing touchdown to MVS. With that one leg, with the hop and a pass, and you saw that he was on the ground, and I'm sure he turned his because he turned around, his line was about to pick him up, and I think Mahomes was like, "Don't fucking pick me up," and then Travis Kelce came and just grabbed him and picked him up. But I love his loyalty to the team, his passion for the game. I love Patrick Mahomes. He definitely does not quit on his team. When the team needs him the most, he's there for his team. It's funny how him and Andy Reid got into it because of the injury, and it's not really that they got into it, but it shows the passion that Patrick Mahomes has for the game, for his teammates, just for the fans, for everybody that was there. He was like, "No, I'm not coming out." I was like, "I'm going back in."
Andy Reid just wanted to make sure it wasn't broken.
And he kept asking, "I'm going back in, right or no?" Am I going back in?
You hear the mic'd up?
Yeah.
He almost cried.
He was about to, because he wanted.
Like, no! He was like, his little voice started quivering.
He's
dude,
like, no, I'm
so
not.
Mad,
He's like, I'll go get the X-ray at half. He was like, no. He was like, I'll get the X-ray at halftime. He's like, no, I'm not going. No, I'm not. And then Andy Reid was like, if you don't get that X-ray, you're not playing.
Yeah.
And then Patrick
Andy Reid was 100% right.
How could you look Pat in the eyes and tell him no?
Yeah, and then
I couldn't do it.
The crazy thing is, Patrick Mahomes, after hearing Andy Reid say that, he ran to get.
His coat down, everything.
He didn't walk. He didn't walk. He didn't limp. He ran to get the X-ray.
Yep.
Like there's footage of him running into the locker room.
Oh yeah. Like, did you see the security guy? The security guy was having a snack.
Yeah.
He pulled up real quick once he saw Patrick run over. Oh. Yes, sir. He's like, no,
but
dude,
I love that, man. I love that passion that Patrick Mahomes, man.
It's unmatched.
Thank God, thank God he's on my team. I love Patrick Mahomes. Yep. Obviously, that fired up the team. It fired up Chad Henne. Chad Henne came in hot. He came in hot. I love how Chad Henne is prepared for the big moment. He's not. Yeah, he's there for the big moments. Yeah. Same thing happened 2 years ago. You mentioned it against the Browns. He'd had that clutch run, that 9-yard gain on that third down, and then that good defense too, man. And then had that first down to Tyreek Hill, iced the game. And game was over.
I said something to Marcus Dash on the Chief Concern show. I said, I think that if Chad Henne decides to continue his career and it's in Kansas City for the next year or two, if the Chiefs get back to the divisional round next season, they should just let him have a drive. Like, let Patrick Mahomes sit down.
The annual.
Let Chad Henne have a drive. You know?
Yeah, and the second quarter, have him get a drive in the second quarter.
Patrick's totally fine.
Bro, that's so insulting to the opposition.
Just let Chad Henne have a drive. Just keep tradition going. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, dude. I'm for that.
I don't know what it is with the Chiefs backups, but we go back into Matt Moore. Matt Moore, the Super Bowl run,
man. That is
the Super Bowl run.
And the Vikings game saved the season.
He beat the Packers. Obviously, they had Jordan Love. Jordan Love.
No, you're talking about so you're talking about 2019. Chiefs lost to the Packers in that game. Actually, Matt Moore played well. They lost 31-24. The next week, we had to beat the Vikings. You remember that? Yep. And then they had the 96-yard.
I thought we beat the Packers and the Vikings.
Yeah, but Patrick Mahomes, that was in 2020. You're talking 2021.
No, I know. When Matt Moore came in, that's why I'm trying to say, like, I'm trying to put backups in general. I'm not saying Chad Henne.
Yeah.
No. I'm saying back. Like, it's something about Chiefs backups. Like I said, and Matt Moore, when he had to come in, he did his thing.
Oh yeah.
I was like, fuck. I want to have him.
He's actually a better quarterback between him and Chad Henne.
He
was more mobile too. Yeah.
Too bad that he retired to become a coach.
Yeah.
Was it high school coach?
Yes.
Which, I mean, I want to have him back, but it's just the way this team rallies. They don't give up, especially in the postseason. The way they play in the postseason, obviously last year, it took literally Patrick Mahomes to suck to lose the game.
Worst half of his career.
Yeah, it literally took him to suck. He looked like fuck. I can't even fucking pick a name. He was just terrible.
And even with that, the Chiefs had an opportunity on defense
to win.
For Chris Jones to sack Joe Burrow on that third and long. They would have got the ball back and they'd have won the game. Yeah. So even with Patrick having a meltdown, you're right.
Yeah. So it's just great to see the defense actually, finishing plays. Yeah. Something we struggled with last year, just couldn't get to the quarterback. This year, Trevor Lawrence, obviously the least sacked quarterback in the league for a while. Yeah. I don't know if he ended up being the least sacked quarterback, but I know they were heading in that direction, and for them to pressure Trevor Lawrence, to make him do those mistakes, hurry him to where he had to throw the ball away or whatever, the defense did their job.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. I hadn't seen that type of defense for quite some time, especially against the Texans. Toward finishing the season against the Broncos, that defense was struggling a little bit. It was concerning me, especially heading into the playoffs. But then seeing that defense come alive and do their thing in the postseason, which matters even more than regular season, kind of calmed me down and made me trust the defense a little bit more.
Right.
So, yeah, it's just a great performance overall, offensively, defensively. Obviously, Chris Jones didn't get his first sack in the postseason, but he played well. He did everything he could to help his team, and yeah.
I want to say Frank Clark too, man. Frank Clark absolutely had one of maybe his best game of the year last week. So he single-handedly forced that punt on that one drive.
Yep.
Where he got tripped and he had the pressure. He
didn't quit.
No. He looks so good.
He's
right
healthy
now.
also. That's the other thing. He's finally healthy.
This is if anything to be pumped up about. I know Chris Jones is the guy we want to see finally get that sack and get that monkey off his back for the postseason.
Frank Clark playoffs.
But Frank Clark can wreck a game right now.
Playoff Frank Clark.
Yes,
by far one of the best defensive players that the Chiefs have.
And you saw it in his post-game interview, like Chris Jones hyping him. There's blood in the water. They're quoting Frank Clark from all these.
The shark from 2019.
That is so contagious for this defensive locker room, and the way our safeties have been playing.
Especially they
Juan
need.
Thornton's been playing great.
They need everything. They need all that energy, and I love how this. I love how this. And I love how Spagnuolo's finally adjusting to what the offense is, because we saw how they adjusted to the type of offense that the Jaguars play, and I just like how the defense is finally clicking. They did their game. They did what they had to do. Carlos Dunlap is.
It's almost like the Chiefs have a more versatile defense this time around than they did last year. Like going the rookie route with, was it 5 new starting defenders? There were rookies or young guys.
It's faster. I would say it's faster.
Yeah, more flexible. You have more options. Like this was Steve. I said this guys from the beginning. This was going to be his biggest challenge going into this year. Year 4, first time ever as a defensive coordinator, and for the first time in his career, relying on rookies and young players to lead his defense. Like Chris Jones, L'Jarius Sneed are obviously the veteran guys he looked towards, and Carlos Dunlap an early or late acquisition. But it is, like you guys said, 25-year-old Justin Reed, 26-year-old Juan Thornhill, 22-year-old Trent McDuffie, 21-year-old Jalen Watson, 21-year-old Joshua Williams, 23-year-old Joshua Williams, young dudes.
And the way Juan Thornhill has stepped up this season, he's been playing great.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to get paid.
He's going to get
his money.
If it ain't with the Chiefs, which
the Chiefs,
I don't think it would. Yeah. But man,
you're right.
He's been balling out
out there this year.
Right.
Justin Reed has been also playing good. Obviously, he has those kind of games where it's just kind of, come on, bro.
He had a sack. Didn't he have a sack? Or
yes.
He had a sack.
He had a sack. Justin Reed.
Not this week.
Not this week. Last week. Yeah.
But here's the thing, and we talk about this also, is the Chiefs last season were 29th in sacks with 31. This season they had 24. They almost doubled their sack total from a year ago. Now, obviously, the acquisitions of Karlaftis and Dunlap to help with that.
But
Joe Colin is the key in all this. Joe Colin, our defensive line head coach, or the guy defensive line coach from the Jaguars, came over here and changed everything. Spags gave him the reins of doing that. I actually think, guys, if Spagnuolo ultimately retires this year, which there's rumors about that, Joe Colin will be the new DC.
I think he will.
I do believe he'll be the new DC, and I'm actually cheering for that low key because I think this guy's got what it takes to be a really good DC in this league because he's got that defensive line.
He's made Frank Clark earn his money this season. Right. I think Frank Clark earned his money.
And to your point about Frank Clark, to say that you tied Reggie White for the 4th most sacks in postseason history, he's a half sack away from, I think, 3rd all time. Like,
that's wild.
Frank Clark has a legitimate opportunity. I don't think he's going to catch Willie McGinnis. He needs like 5 more
to Hall of Fame career in the postseason.
To break Willie McGinnis. I think Willie McGinnis has 16, and Frank has 12 now. But if he would it shock anybody if he gets 3 or 4 more sacks in the postseason?
Well,
it would shock me,
especially this next week if he gets 2 big sacks in this game.
That's what I'm saying,
bro.
We saw this in 2019 against better offensive lines.
Yeah, man.
And he went and did it, man. So that contract, that trade, and that contract the Chiefs got for Frank Clark has been more than justified.
100%.
More than justified.
He's one of the biggest catalysts.
If I could just get Frank Clark on the playoffs every year, kind of like what we said about Damian Williams. If I can get Damian Williams the same Damian Williams every playoffs, sign me up. I'll fucking.
You know who Frank Clark is? He's Robert Ory. He's a guy that all season long is not special, doesn't do anything really all that special, just kind of in and out of the lineup, had injury problems. But, man, when you need a clutch shot, when you need a bucket, a little clutch three-pointer, you need a clutch sack, bank, big shot Rob, dude. Frank the Shark Clark, man, is that guy. He comes up strong, comes up big in the biggest moments, and you can tell the biggest I wouldn't say upgrade, but the biggest difference from last year's Frank Clark to this year's Frank Clark, because Chris Jones last year struggled to get to the quarterback. He had I believe he had less sacks last year. He only had 9 sacks last year. I mean, that's a good number, but
but this year with Frank Clark, the way he's played, he almost doubled his sacks. Chris Jones, because now you have to double team either Frank Clark or Chris Jones, and now you have Carlos Dunlap on the other side. So now you can't really double. You have to literally pick who you're double teaming on that play.
And you're seeing pressure from other for the last couple of years, Chris Jones has been the only interior defensive lineman that's been getting pressure on quarterbacks. Now you saw Colin Saunders. Colin Saunders hit Trevor Lawrence like 11 yards back.
The crazy thing is how fast he took off and nobody touched him. He just went for Trevor Lawrence.
The Derek Nottie sack was the best sack of the game, though.
Man.
He immediately got right up the middle and just took his ass out like a 10-yard loss.
And not to mention Brandon Williams, who no one talks about, is constantly – he's been great in the run game. He's been stuffing the run game. No one's talking about – and we're going to talk about this in a minute, about some of these pieces the Chiefs have going into this matchup against the Bengals. They didn't have last time in Week 13. We're going to get to that in a second. A lot of on both sides of the ball, yes.
The way the Chiefs played this game, I'm going to say that the Jacksonville Jaguars, everybody is downplaying them. It's like, well, it's Jacksonville. Jacksonville, they came back against the Chargers, who, in my opinion,
you know how hard that is.
Yeah, who in my opinion, they're a good team.
They're a historic comeback.
They're a good team. They're a great defense. It's not a terrible defense. It's to come back.
I think it's the second best rush defense in the league.
Yeah, that to come back and put 20, 27, or 30 points in the second half or some shit like that.
And the biggest thing was it wasn't even ETN that was the reason why they were winning the game. Like ETN had a good game, but it was because Trevor Lawrence, when he saw one go down, he saw that one 3-pointer go down. He's like, all right, now we got it. And the defense started making stops. Justin Herbert went into the tank as I expected. Yeah, and then you saw it.
Yeah, Jacksonville was no easy test for the Chiefs. No. This is a confident team who just came back almost 30 points down
with one of the best coaches in football, Doug Peterson.
Which is crazy. So I hate the fact that they're downplaying the Jaguars. I don't know why. That's a good team, especially how they played last season to this year. Go from last to first. In one season is incredible.
Right.
And so hats off to them. They're still a young team. I can guarantee you they'll be right back next year.
They're going to be good next year.
And I think they're going to be a little bit better than they were this year. And
just
be careful because they can sneak in. They can fucking very well sneak past the divisional round.
Is theirs to lose.
Yeah. So.
All right, well, that's our recap on this on the divisional round games. If you guys have thoughts, anything you want to add to what we had to say about these games, go ahead and let us know, because this is just a recap of what we already know. But we'd love to hear from you guys. Let us know what you guys think. Hit us up on YouTube, subscribe to that, and comment in the chat there as well. We'd appreciate it. Eddie, I'm really excited to hear about you, man, or hear about what you got in the Eddie Hour this week. I wanted to kind of segment between the divisional games and the conference championship games and sprinkle in some Eddie Hour stuff right here, because I know we have to. Something we very much take pride in here at the Spoken Podcast is we like to go across the sports landscape. We don't want to just specifically stick to one topic or one sport. We want to kind of bounce around a little bit, and that is why the Eddie Hour is perfect for that. So, Eddie, without further ado, man, what do you got going on in the Eddie Hour this week?
All right, let's go to basketball first. I want to get your thoughts. I know we were doing the show when it happened, and I was like, I'll just wait and see other people's reactions and see what and then I'll just bring it up this episode. And I want to talk about the whole Shannon Sharpe in L.A. kind of situation in the Lakers. What do you think about fans? Because ultimately he's a fan getting into it with a player. Like what are your thoughts on that? On the whole situation?
I've always been somebody that said that fans need to know their place. That you're paid to heckle, or you pay money to be able to go and heckle. You can heckle. I'm good with that, because that's a part of the experience. Is that you suck, or boo, whatever you want to say, or cheer your team on, all that stuff. You have the right to do it because you paid for the experience. You paid to watch these guys, and you're a part of the game. I think there are lines that that should never be crossed. You should never go after a player, like run on the field, run on the court. You should never say things about their families. You should never say things that are unforgivable, based things you can't take back. But see, here's the thing, is that no matter what Dylan Brooks said after the game about calling him a regular citizen, this isn't the same thing as if a fan was to have that same altercation with the Grizzlies. And the reason why is because where it all started. See, if some fan said something on Twitter and then went to the game, Dylan Brooks and that team are not paying attention because they're nobodies. Let's just be real. Shannon Sharpe is not only a Hall of Fame NFL player, he's one of the most popular and famous sports analysts in the world. And so people pay attention to what he says. And if you remember what he said about this particular matchup on Undisputed the day before, he said that Dylan Brooks is not big enough to guard LeBron James. And that is where this all started, because Dylan Brooks caught wind of this. I'm sure he watched the show. I'm sure he saw it on Twitter, whatever the case is. Fact is, he knew about it. And the Grizzlies knew about it. And that's where the chirping began. John Morant's jawing at Shannon. Shannon sitting courtside. Shannon probably should have anticipated that was probably going to happen or something was going to be said. So that's where Shannon is at fault, because he let the emotions get the best of him in the moment. But being a competitor like himself and knowing that he's not just some regular guy and he has cachet and clout, and Dylan Brooks coming at him as a man-to-man, talking to him the way that he was on the sidelines when the timeout proceeded, that's where it all kind of went wiry, is because of the fact that Dylan Brooks couldn't control his emotions, Shannon Sharpe couldn't control his, Steven Adams gets involved, John Morant and his dad, for whatever the hell reason, best choice Usher Raymond got involved. I don't know why that was the case, but he got involved. Shannon Sharpe would have clobbered him if they ever got in a fight. You did see the cleanup, though, afterwards. After Shannon Sharpe and them all got separated, about 10-15 minutes afterward, you saw John Morant's dad come over and they shook it out. Shannon and him hugged it out. John Morant said it's all love. Shannon Sharpe did an apology afterwards on Undisputed the day after. So it's all been cleared and cleaned up. But I'm not someone that's going to knock Shannon Sharpe for this completely. I'm not going to say it's all on him, because I don't think it was. He had a job. His job is to make opinions. And he made an opinion, an accurate opinion, I might add, because Dylan Brooks isn't big enough to guard LeBron James. He can't stop him. No one can. But Dylan Brooks decided to make matters into his own hands. Shannon Sharpe did not like it, and then he challenged him, and then it just got out of control. But I don't think the situation's as big as it actually looked. I think it's just two grown men, two competitive men, two athletes, one former, one current, that got their T levels got the best of them, and it was just a ridiculous squabble. Nothing ever really came of it, and everybody's cleaned it up. I think it's a non-story, to be honest with you, but I get why we're talking about it.
I just want to say, before I say my piece on this, the Grizzlies have lost 4 straight since then. And one of those losses came to my Sacramento Kings by 33 points.
Boom.
I just want to throw that out there. That was a fun night on Monday, watching my Kings do work on those boys. I thought this whole situation was ridiculous. I felt Shannon Sharpe was 100% in the wrong here. You talk about fans having the right to pay their right to go and heckle and things like that. The players also have a right to defend themselves and say whatever they want back as well. We've seen this on if Shannon Sharpe wasn't Shannon Sharpe, he would have been ejected and kicked out and probably banned from the stadium, if we're being honest. But the fact that he is him, and he is who he is, and he has the reputation, and he has the status of what he has, it is what it is. And I'm okay with that. That's no problem. I mean, we know that there's double standards everywhere in this world, and we just have to deal with them. He issued a public apology for a reason, because he knew he was wrong here. There's no reason for that. We're letting words become too important. We're giving words too much power on both sides. But the players also have a reason and a right to defend themselves as well. Steven Adams came to the defense of his players as well. Guys like that, you know what I mean? And I don't like the fact, I don't like when fan engagement, because at that point Shannon was a fan, should never interfere with the game. I hate that. There's just no place for that in this game. These athletes deal with enough as it is. At this point, Shannon is a talking head. Granted, he's a Hall of Fame football player, and all credit to that. That's football. That's an entirely different sport. That's not what this is. You're at a basketball game talking about current players. I know you talk about sports for a living, but don't expect people not to say things back to you or to react to what you say. And you can't go to the game and then start it with those people you talk. It's just, to me,
he didn't start it, though.
He was standing on the sideline telling him to come here.
Right. No,
he was calling him to come to him.
That was his reaction after Dylan Brooks was chirping at him.
He shouldn't do that. If he's anyone else, he's banned from that stadium.
Right. I'm saying, though,
you have to understand that.
Yeah, I'm just saying, though, that we see analysts, talking heads at games quite often. We see Nick Wright go to Brooklyn Nets games, and Kevin Durant and him have had problems. They've never had a problem like that, because Kevin Durant doesn't acknowledge
it. Never crossed lines. This was crossing lines.
Right, that's what I'm saying, though. If Kevin Durant was to acknowledge Nick, I would imagine that there would be a back and forth.
You would think it would get to this degree?
I think Shannon Sharpe is obviously more of a fiery individual.
Yeah,
than Nick,
he let it get the best of him. He lost in that scenario.
I'm saying, though, this situation didn't begin with Shannon Sharpe talking about Dylan Brooks on the show. It's Dylan Brooks reacting to what he said.
Because he has every right to. Dylan Brooks has every right to react. What do you mean? You can just let people talk about it, you can't say something back?
It doesn't make sense for Dylan Brooks to call him a regular class citizen on the post game.
Bro.
But then it bothers him so much that what Shannon said on the show that he had to bring it up during the game.
Shannon
if he's just some regular citizen, why would you acknowledge it?
Shannon knows just as good as any other athlete that's worked their whole entire life to get to this point, as Dylan has, to be in the NBA here on one of the best teams in the West, who's worked his ass off to have this position he's at, to have some guy on. Granted, it's not some guy, it's Shannon Sharpe.
That's my point, yeah.
Yeah, but that holds no bearing to what he did on the court.
But I'm saying Dylan Brooks would acknowledge some regular dude. He acknowledged Shannon Sharpe because of who Shannon Sharpe is. Shannon Sharpe reciprocated. That's where it all started. It was Shannon Sharpe having an opinion. He didn't even say anything disrespectful.
Come here.
I get it. I'm saying after Dylan Brooks was chirping him, John Morant was telling him to shut his ass up.
They have every right to say that. You understand that, though, right?
So Shannon Sharpe doesn't have a right to respond?
No, Shannon Sharpe is the one that started this from the beginning, though, with his show, and he started talking about this man's too small. I'm just saying, dude, we've had how many times have we talked about Skip Bayless saying the things he shouldn't have said about LeBron, calling him Queen James?
But what did he say wrong about Dylan Brooks?
You're telling another grown man he's too small to guard another grown man.
He's 6'5". Dylan Brooks ain't big enough to guard LeBron.
I think you're missing the point, though.
But he wasn't.
This man, Dylan Brooks, regardless of what stature he is in the league and whatever he's revered as, he's a so-so player, he's a decent, solid, really good defender in the league. Being talked about publicly, he's having his manhood questioned who he could and could not guard.
Do you believe he can stop LeBron?
That's not the point. You're missing my point. They're talking about him publicly on what he can and cannot do, downgrading his play, talking about him live on TV. I think the player has every right to respond to that. Shannon Sharpe is the one that crossed the lines here as a bystander in this game. You have to understand that, though. He is a fan at that point.
Okay, sure, but Dylan Brooks is okay. So what I don't understand is the outcry of Shannon Sharpe taking his manlyhood on a show that he's supposed to have an opinion on. Not disrespect him. He's talking about the facts of the matchup.
He didn't disrespect him at the game?
Hold on, no. Dylan Brooks then outs him publicly in front of 20,000 Laker fans. Shannon Sharpe's supposed to just sit there and take that?
Him? How did he out him?
They're literally calling him out, telling him to shut his ass up because they're mad about what he said on the show.
Because Shannon was screaming at them.
No, Trevor.
Yes, he was.
Watch the beginning of the video. Shannon's not even talking to the guys.
So they're telling him to shut up when he wasn't talking?
Because they literally show the video of Shannon not saying anything to them first. John Morant and them going on a timeout. They're looking at him, telling him to shut his ass up because of what he said on the show.
Okay, but you don't think they have, as players, have a right to defend their own pride as players, and then Shannon Sharpe reacting, stepping onto the court and saying, "Get over here."
No,
who crossed the line?
I clearly said in the beginning that I said Shannon Sharpe shouldn't have gone to the extent that he did.
Okay, so we know he was wrong in that
situation. My point, though, is, Trevor, is that Dylan Brooks and them are the ones that ignited the fire at the stadium, at the arena.
Okay, but he has a choice to react to that.
Trevor, Dylan Brooks.
So you think Dylan Brooks was wrong for what he did?
Yeah.
How?
Because he's supposed to be able to rise above what someone says on a
show. But
Shannon's
not.
Trevor,
Shannon's the one that reacted.
Did I not just say Shannon Sharpe was wrong for doing what he did at the afterwards?
Okay, so what's your point, though?
The whole situation started because of Dylan Brooks.
Oh, okay.
Because Shannon Sharpe is paid to have an opinion. He did not say one thing disrespectful about Dylan Brooks on that show. I watched the episode. All he said was it's a mismatch. Because it is. Dylan Brooks can't stop LeBron James. That's a fact. That's all he was stating. The question was presented to him about Dylan Brooks versus LeBron James. He goes, he's too small to guard him. He is. He's 4 inches shorter and about 40 pounds lighter. The point I'm making is that Shannon was just addressing the matchup. He didn't say Dylan Brooks is a scrub. He didn't say, I hope he sees me at the stadium because I'm going to throw down with him. He didn't say anything personal. He was just talking about the sport. Dylan Brooks took that personal and started going at Shannon at the game. Shannon's like, hey, bro, don't be talking like that. If you want to, you can come right here. He's pointing at him, come get it. Because if you want to talk tough, come talk tough. I wasn't talking tough.
Dylan Brooks is 6'8", 225 pounds.
He's still smaller than LeBron James.
By an inch?
LeBron weighs 265 pounds, Trevor. That's a 45-pound difference.
He's 6'8", 230. Like, what do you mean?
LeBron is a much bigger man, though. You see the size difference.
Dude, that's not
the
even...
The point I'm making, Trevor, is do you believe Dylan Brooks can stop LeBron James?
That is not my point. Who's talking?
That was Shannon's point.
Oh, my God, bro. We're talking about what happened on the court.
Right, and I said who started it.
Oh, my goodness.
Dylan Brooks.
Lance, okay, if someone starts something with you, you have every right, you have every control within yourself to either choose to engage or walk away. What should Shannon have done? We know if Shannon was any other person in that arena, he would have been banned for what he did, correct? Because he was wrong, correct? You don't think Shannon was wrong at all here?
In regular situations...
answer my question.
I'm trying to. In regular situations, a fan that says something... First of all, they don't have the platform Shannon has, so it is a different situation to begin with.
Who?
Fans that get banned from games are people that are saying horrible things about... That's why I literally just said at the beginning that it's usually heckling that goes beyond the lines, that cross the line,
That's exactly
that
what
get
happened.
players pissed off. That is not what happened.
What are you
talking about? What happened was, Trevor, How many times do I have to break this down? Dylan Brooks is the one that started the whole thing at the game. Then Shannon said, "Oh, you're going to do that? Coming my way." It's usually the other way around, Trevor.
Yes,
where
so
a fan is saying horrible things about the player then has to go get the person banned.
Okay,
it's not the
you
same
understand.
situation.
You understand though how like even in NFL, like when penalties, guys get ejected. Say the ref misses the first blow from one guy, another guy takes the helmet off and hits another guy. He's going to get ejected because it's always the second guy. Shannon Sharpe was the second guy here, regardless of how it started. Shannon Sharpe reacted, stepped onto the court. Anyone else in that arena?
He never stepped on the court.
Okay, he stepped off out of the seats into the sidelines. He was on the floor. Yes, he was.
He was out of bounds. I watched the video 30 times.
He was calling over players, and he started a scuffle.
He said, if Dylan wants to talk, come get it.
Oh, my God.
I'm saying Shannon's wrong for doing that. Did I not say that 5 times now?
So you agree, anyone else that does that outside of Shannon Sharpe is ejected and probably banned from that stadium?
I'm sure. But
That's my
again,
point, so he was
Trevor,
wrong.
The context is different.
Because he
this
talks
was
about
based
it for a
upon
living?
Dylan Brooks getting his feelings hurt for a
Shannon
talk show.
So because Shannon Sharpe talks about this for a living, he gets a pass. If that's anyone else, they are banned from that stadium.
If Shannon Sharpe would have went to that game trying to start a problem,
that's not the point.
That would have been on 100%.
So it has to be premeditated for him to be wrong.
No, for the 7th time now.
You just said
did I not say Shannon Sharpe was wrong?
Okay, you haven't really been saying that though. Honestly, you haven't really been saying that.
Okay,
my point is that anybody else.
I literally said Shannon was wrong.
Okay.
I said Shannon.
That was my whole point.
How many? We'll say it right now.
With me about
Shannon
my point.
was wrong for reacting to what Dylan Brooks did.
That was my whole point. If that was anybody else, Shannon was wrong here. That's what I'm saying. He issued a public apology. You've been fighting me on my point that Shannon was wrong. But you're trying to make it more about Dylan Brooks being wrong. I understand that.
All right.
I don't understand. You said your whole point was defending Shannon Sharpe. I wasn't doing that. So.
All right, let's stick to basketball.
Yep.
I want to give this time. I want to get this platform to Trevor because I know every time we're off this show and all that stuff, he's always talking about his Kings. I want to give him that time, the platform for you guys to talk about the Kings.
Hell yeah.
How they're going this season. What do you expect from them this season? Are we gonna see them in the playoffs? What I want to just hear you
I would
talk.
say this. I mean, we're 100% a lock for the playoffs. I mean, we're with the Grizzlies losing 4 straight. We're 2 games behind them for the 2nd seed. Well, we're fighting for that second seed right now. The Grizzlies have, like I said, dropped 4 straight since that whole Shannon Sharpe debacle.
They're leading the West and Pacific by 2 whole games.
We are the best offense in the NBA right now. I think we're averaging about 122 points per game, which is madness. Domas Sabonis is the most underrated player in the NBA, I think, in my mind, and I think the second underrated player in the NBA is De'Aaron Fox. I think we have the 2 most underrated stars in this league, and the way they're playing right now as a unit. We have one of the best bench rotations with Malik Monk coming off the bench. Kevin Huerter is one of the most underrated shooters in this league, one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. When he's hot, he's up there with anybody. So I think Mike Brown was the biggest difference maker. He brought a culture with him in this team that just kind of changed the way we play. We started playing a little bit better defense, but the chemistry I think in this second year with Domas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox is just they become a nasty duo, man. The way that Domas I think already has 7 triple doubles in the year. And he's a walking double-double. The guy's already had numerous 2020 games this year. So he kind of reminds me of prime Kevin Love, but not as good of a 3-point shooter, obviously. But he has that prime Kevin Love way about him. He's just very fundamental, very strong, tough inside, a little undersized, but he just gets the job done, and he is tough. He's very, very strong and hard to deal with in the inside of the paint area. So, yeah, I love everything about this. Harrison Barnes has been a great veteran for this team, a guy that can go get you 25 and some nights, and a very deadly 3-point shooter. And then Keegan Murray being our rookie this year has had some big games as well. Very good defender, has a lot of Rudy Gay to his game, a little bit of Kevin Durant to his game too. He's actually a solid defender and a really good 3-point shooter. So a good 3-and-D guy for a rookie. So everything is clicking right now for this team. I really didn't expect them to be this good this year. I expected a really good possible playoff run this year, but I didn't expect to be within the top 5 seeds of the West at this point. Looking through that All-Star break, being maybe a 2 seed or a second place in the West, which is crazy to think. But I couldn't be happier, man. I had high hopes for this team this year. I was interested to see what the chemistry between Sabonis and Fox would look like in year 2. After that being a mid-season trade with Halliburton, I was very mad about Halliburton trade. I thought, and he's obviously been great, but he's been injured this year a lot with the Pacers. But Halliburton's been incredible with the Pacers this year. They're another overachieving team in the East when they're all healthy. So it was a fair trade. I think it worked out for both sides. Obviously more for the Kings though. Yeah. But yeah, man, I couldn't be happier for this team. This is definitely something to build on. We're probably going to be a first-round exit in the playoffs. But just to be able to watch them in the playoffs, which I'm very confident they'll be there this year, to be able to watch them this year in the playoffs is going to be not only nostalgic, but it's just going to reignite a love I've been missing for this team. I always had love for this team, but it's been just similar to how we dealt with all those years with the Chiefs. You know what I mean? We love this team. We root for them every week. We watch every game. We stress out every game, even though we know we're most likely going to lose most games. Yeah. But this team, the way that they've been confidently winning games, putting teams down, like absolutely just demoralizing teams. We beat the Grizzlies by 33 points. You know what I mean? That doesn't happen to them very often. So, yeah, we've beat the Lakers numerous times already this year. We beat a lot of good teams this year. Beat the Nuggets, the number 1 seed in the West. We beat them. It's just a lot. It doesn't matter who it is. On a nightly basis, I think we could score with the best of them and compete with the best of them at this point. So, yeah, man, I couldn't be more happy about this Kings team for sure this year.
They have the third best record in the NBA over the last 10 games.
Yeah.
So they're 7-3 in their last 10. This Kings team, man, I didn't buy into the beginning of the season. I thought they're going to be that team that's like right out of the postseason still because they're still a young building team. Mike Brown's been a proven seasoned head coach in this league. But to see what they're doing, man, I agree with Trevor. I think Sabonis is probably the most underrated, underappreciated player in this league.
Yeah.
A walking double-double, a guy that can shoot, a guy that can pass, a guy that can defend, a guy that can definitely rebound. It's nothing short of incredible, man.
Well, I want to say this, too. I think they've created one of the cooler cultures in the NBA. I think they have the coolest culture right now growing in the NBA. And
Light the beam!
The beam team thing that's going on right now is so dope. That stadium is incredible, by the way. And that beam they put on top of it, every time they win, they've had celebrities come out and light the beam at the end of the games, hit the big old purple button and lights the beam at the top. It's such a cool culture they're growing up there, man. And surrounded around these young stars right now is a really cool thing. And I also want to say too, our announcer, our halftime host, he's actually going to be the host of the All-Star game this year, which is cool to get that notoriety. The Kings are starting to get some kind of some clout, credence, it's cool to see that, man. And it's undeniable. These guys are out there just putting up. We just hit 12 3-pointers in our first quarter a couple nights ago. That was against the Grizzlies. 12
NBA record,
tied the NBA record for most in one quarter. 12
it was the Rockets that had it before.
I think it was the Harden Rockets.
Yeah,
I think
the Harden
it was.
Rockets.
Yeah, so I mean, we're setting a lot of records this year offensively. De'Aaron Fox. If De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis aren't in I think Sabonis made the All-Star roster as a backup or something like that, but I don't think De'Aaron Fox did. But I don't think these guys care. I think these guys have one goal in mind, and it's to go win some playoff games this year. And I think they have a good chance to. But I'm just loving every second of it right now, man.
Who is your mid-season MVP so far in the NBA?
Oh, it's Jokic. I hate to be that way, but I know the whole 3 in a row thing isn't something that people like because it's all narrative driven. He's been statistically the best player in the NBA so far, outside of maybe Giannis. I think Joel Embiid's been given a little bit of run for that money as well, but Joel's missed some games. Jokic has been healthy this season. The Nuggets are the best team in the Western Conference right now. I don't know if that's going to last or not. It depends on Jamal Murray's health, but they're clicking. Jokic is clearly the best player on their team. And it's really hard for me to go against him. I know the narrative is, let's give it to somebody else. But you can't say with any true conviction that outside of maybe Giannis, anybody has been better this season and has done more for their team this season than Jokic. So I'm going to say Jokic right now.
Jokic is running away with it again. Yeah. I mean, he's probably going to have his third straight, which is
I
don't think that's ever happened before. I don't think 3 straights ever happened. 2 straight has.
Two's happened a bunch.
Yeah.
I think it has happened. I could be wrong. Bill Russell maybe.
I don't think so.
Nah.
I don't think there's been 3 in a row.
Maybe Kareem?
I don't know, 3 in a row, man.
Let's look that up, Eddie.
Larry Bird is the most recent player to win 3 straight MVP awards.
Yep, that makes sense.
Larry Bird, Wilt Chamberlain, and Bill Russell are the only players to ever do it.
Okay,
but I mean,
Kareem
but think about it. You have to go that far back.
We're talking. Larry Bird probably
crazy.
did that, what, 40 years ago?
In the early 80s.
Easily 40 years ago?
We're talking about the early 80s last time this happened.
Yeah.
But that goes to show, obviously, how much more talent we have in today's NBA compared to that. How much harder and much more parity there is. But the fact that Jokic has a chance to win 3 straight in this modern era with all the talent with the Luka Doncic and what LeBron's doing at this age, and with Giannis and guys like that still, and even Ja Morant, guys like that.
LeBron
that
James? Yeah, like you said.
That's what I'm saying. LeBron at 38 years old, doing
averaging
what he's doing,
38 and 6,
third in the league in scoring, which is madness. Has multiple 40-point games, multiple 50-point games this year already. It's just stupid.
Scoring's been insane
LeBron's
this year.
doing is stupid this year. But yeah, I think it's Jokic right now. My guy I wanted to see win it this year was Luka, but Luka just sprained his ankle. That definitely hurts his odds down the stretch. Things could happen.
But the record isn't as good as you want it to be either.
Right, and the Nuggets are the 1 seed right now. You know what I mean? So the Nuggets are not only the best team in the NBA right now, Jokic is the best player in the NBA right now.
Nick Wright hates it, but it's the truth.
It's the fact.
It's the truth.
He's the most efficient player in the NBA. What he does, and it doesn't even look pretty. Like the way he finds guys with his ability to find guys in the
so
passing
unathletic.
pockets.
It's so
the way
funny.
he shoots, the way his little fadeaway. He has like a half-inch vertical, and he still hits these shots. It's wild.
He plays like a giant Paul Pierce.
This is a guy that would
it's so
thrive.
weird, dude. How he
would
does
thrive
it.
in any era. I don't care if it was the Elijah era. With the crafty, the big men started getting crafty. This guy would dominate then too because he's so crafty with his footwork and his ability to hit those little baby hooks and he hit the three. He could hit the three. You know what I mean? And his ability to facilitate is crazy. Jokic is an anomaly right now. What he's doing is anomalous. He's doing something bigs have never done before, like overall. No. I know Joel Embiid is incredible with the ball in his hands. He's got the Euro step. He can do that, but he can't facilitate.
He's the size of Brad Miller, but he plays like John Stockton. Like it's so weird how he does it,
and it's not like the prettiest thing either.
No.
It's just, his numbers are undeniable. His efficient rating is just undeniable. His plus minus when he's on and off the floor is undeniable. The guy is the most valuable player in the NBA right now, bro. So it's Jokic right now by a mile.
Yep.
What does AD mean to the Lakers now that he's back?
Everything. They can't win anything if they don't have Anthony Davis. Their roster is just simply not good enough. The Lakers have decided this season, at least to this point, maybe they'll change their minds. I can't imagine that Rob Pelinka is going to budge, but they've basically said, like, look, it's going to come down to a 38-year-old LeBron James and a 29-year-old injury-prone Anthony Davis that's going to lead us to anything we have. So I do believe they're going to make the playoffs. I know they're not currently in the playoffs. So they're only 2 games out of, like, the 6th seed right now. I think they're going to get in because I think, let's hope that Anthony Davis can at least be healthy enough to, finish this coffee that he probably has in his hand right now.
5th seed and down, the West is wide open.
Yes.
I've tweaked his ankle on
what
the
pisses me off.
What
pisses me off about this situation, not to dive too deep off, because I want to answer the question directly as I can. He is everything to this team. What pisses me off, though, is the Lakers have a real opportunity to add some serious contribution and talent to this roster with those 2 picks that are in 6-7 years from now. Because and the West is so wide open right now. If the Nuggets are the best team in the West, then the West is wide open. Because I don't believe in the Nuggets. I believe in Jokic. I think he's the MVP. Trevor and I just agreed on it. They're a very beatable team.
They always lose in the postseason.
They're not there. They've proven nothing. They're the Buffalo Bills. Yeah. They're a team that looks awesome, fun, saucy, all that stuff, but they can't ever do it in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And the Lakers have 2 of the 10 best players in the world, and they're not going to add talent to that team. They're relying on Austin Reeves and guys like that to play meaningful minutes. Russell Westbrook's been balling out as a 6th man. There's never been a time in his Laker tenure where he's more valuable for a trade. You trade Russell Westbrook to the Bulls for a Zach LaVine.
There's some
that changes the integrity of the entire infrastructure of this team.
Yeah.
But they're not doing it. So although Anthony Davis means everything, what matters more is them bringing in more talent for this team to actually go out there and contend. Because they're not that as crazy as it sounds right now with them having a losing record. Things change. We're not even at the All-Star break yet. Things change. Look at the Celtics last year. They had a losing record before the All-Star break. They were in the finals last season. Yeah. So things can break even because the West is not nearly as good as we thought it was.
Celtics been struggling
and if you
lately
get
too.
No offense to the Kings, but if you get LeBron, AD, and like a Zach LaVine against the Kings, they win in 5 games.
Yeah, I'm picking the Lakers.
So that's where it's so frustrating with the Lakers. Like, why aren't you doing this? Go get LeBron help. You are supposed to win right now. You're the greatest player ever lived, still playing at a top level. Go get him help and get to the Western Conference Finals and see what happens.
Yeah, and I think AD, I mean, LeBron is obviously the most valuable player on this roster. AD is the most important, though.
Thank you.
He's the most important because of what he does defensively as well. They need that. And kudos
He's in his prime.
Kudos to Bryant, and I like the Hachimura pickup. That's a good pickup, a good two-way player, good
You're
versatile scorer.
Hoochie Mama.
Hoochie Mama. That's so disrespectful, dude. That's so disrespectful. I'm sure he knows the kid. everyone knows Chuck, so I'm sure he knows the has a relationship with. He can do that. Not a lot of other people can do that. But that's disrespectful to a man's last name.
I like this hoochie mama pickup.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie, that was funny as hell. But yeah, they've made some good signings. They brought in some good guys, and they basically brought the Washington Wizards crew over here.
Yeah.
I think they should trade Russell Westbrook, if I'm being honest.
Yes.
I don't trust Russell in the playoffs. I just don't. It is what it is. Russ has never been a winner in the postseason, and he's been on great rosters. You know what I mean? So,
and that was back when he was at his peak.
I love Russ, dude. I love who he is. I love the passion he brings. One of the most passionate players I've ever seen in my life, and paired with his talent. You know, he's a great talent, but he's just not. I don't think he's level-headed enough to put it together mentally for a playoff run. I'm just calling it like I've seen it. You know what I mean? So, I think they should try to find a way to trade him, whether it's for a Zach LaVine, another lethal offensive weapon. Because this roster is decent, and they could definitely make a run if AD stays healthy. That is the biggest concern for this team. If AD's healthy, they are 100% a top-tier unit in the West. I believe that. I think they get beat damn near anybody in the West.
They just need one more piece.
If it comes down to a three best out of 3, best out of 5 series, or best out of 7, obviously, I think they can compete with anybody in the West. So yeah, I think AD is extremely important, the most important player for what he does on both ends of the court, and the matchup that he demands on any other team that has to face him for what he can do, shooting the ball and defending the rim. He's a very valuable asset to any team that would have him. So yes, I 100%. I mean, AD is the guy for this team. He has to be the guy for this team moving forward. LeBron's almost fucking 40 years old.
Yeah.
Looks like Shohei Ohtani's looking like he might get a $500 million contract, the first one in MLB history, the biggest one in MLB history. Your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's without question he's worth every penny of it. The problem is he's going to be wasted upon a horrific franchise, as I've talked about before. You want to get me triggered? Let's start talking about the Angels. The Angels have had the greatest player since Barry Bonds, and they've done nothing. Mike Trout is the best player of the last 15 years, and they've done nothing. Shohei Ohtani is the most unique baseball player since Babe Ruth, and they've done nothing. He's asked me whether the contract is he's worth that contract. Yes, 100%. The problem is he's not in a market. He's in a market that's great, but he's not on the team that makes that market great, like the Dodgers. If he played for the Dodgers, that dude is an automatic ticket sale. But because no one cares about the Angels, and the Angels don't care about the Angels, I feel like that $500 million is just going to be wasted because Shohei Ohtani should be celebrated. He should be hailed. Mike Trout should be the same, but they're just not on a team that cares. And that's just really unfortunate, man. So I almost would rather the Angels just come to the realization that for baseball's sake, they trade him for a bunch of picks or a bunch of players. That's not going to happen, though, because they're going to hold on to what they got, but what they don't deserve. So it's an unfortunate situation, but he is deserving of it, and I'll be happy as hell when he gets it. But I just hate the fact that he ended up on that team.
I say it time and time again, and I'll say it again here. The MLB is failing in this modern era. It's failing to utilize the star talent and the ability to utilize stars with social media, with just the amount of clout that these guys can gain. Contracts, I mean, if he gets that contract, great for him. But outside of like the Dodgers and the Yankees, maybe the Giants and other bigger
Phillies.
markets, the Phillies, other markets but that's
Astros.
You can name maybe a handful of teams that really know how to market their players.
Yeah.
Everyone knows Jeter, everyone knows A-Rod, everyone knows a lot of the Barry Bonds and these guys. But even back then, like the 90s with the Bonds and the Sosa era, they knew how to like make the stars, and it was such a sexy sport at the time. They're failing at this in this era to utilize that again. The way that they are, I understand. I hope he gets that contract, and good for him. But these other smaller market teams, because we've seen Patrick Mahomes is in a small market. Patrick Mahomes is the face of the NFL. You know what I mean?
Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay.
John Morant's in Memphis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's one of the faces of the NBA. Luka is in Dallas. I know Dallas is a fairly big
major
market for football,
yeah.
but it never really has been. I mean, I know Dirk was Dirk, but Luka is always one of the faces of the league.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence.
LeBron was in Cleveland.
This is my comparison to the MLB. What it's missing, what the NBA and the NFL are doing. It does not matter the location anymore. Location doesn't matter anymore, right? Just like dating nowadays. Any girl from any part of town can have a nice Instagram, and a guy can fly her out. You know what I mean? That's just how it is nowadays. It doesn't matter with social media and how quick things can go. does the NBA, the NFL, or the MLB is not taking advantage of making their stars that much more than what they could be. Contracts are one thing, but these guys could be making so much more for their personal brands, and like you said, Mike Trout. Mike Trout should be one of the biggest stars, most notable faces in sports. That's how great he's been throughout his career. You know what I mean? I think they're really missing the mark on that. And I think, like I said, contracts are fine. The money is fine. These guys are going to get paid. But not a lot of people are going to know who they are. Yep. Ohtani is an absolute stud. One of the best talents in this we've seen in the last handful of years. What he can do. But it's just, I feel like it's just falling short. Yeah, he's probably gonna get the bag, but it's just falling short of what these guys could be. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't carry nearly as much weight as the NBA stars and the NFL stars and the notoriety of their faces and them being recognizable people. My thing, I feel like Mike Trout can go walk the streets in any city outside of the one he lives in, and no one will even really know who he is.
Right.
That's sad.
Yep.
He's the Barry Bonds of this era, and he's not even gonna be a recognizable face in the streets. That's sad. This guy shouldn't be able to go anywhere. You know what I mean? So, to me, that's just crazy. I feel like the MLB really needs to figure out a way to get these guys' faces out there and make these guys notable, and really utilize that. Granted, a lot of that can come on the person, the person themselves, the individual themselves, their individual brand. But they need to really take some pages out of the books of the NBA, and specifically the NBA. They know how to make their stars more than anybody. But the NFL is definitely doing that a lot more now too. So with like the personal podcasting, things like that, they need to really engage with their players more in the MLB and make these guys what they are. Not to go on a tangent about that because it has really nothing to do with the contract. I do think he will get paid, and I think that's something he's well deserved. But I just really want to see that for the MLB, to kind of keep up with the pacing of this new generation of the social media age and the podcasting age and the things that all that to kind of be more personal. They need to loosen up the reins of the unwritten rules and the no beards in New York and all these things, these random weird things that just go on in this league that kind of hold it back from growing and progressing. So that's my little tangent connected to the money. Because the money, when I hear these big contracts in the MLB, I'm like, cool. No one's going to know who they are at the end of the day for the most part, nationally. You know what I mean? It just kind of is what, outside of like the diehard baseball fans. But they need to sex up baseball a little bit more, I feel. But the contract, yeah, good for him, man, if he gets it.
And it makes total sense because I seen a video online about a retired MLB player going back to watch an MLB game. And he sees a fan wearing his jersey, and he goes. His wife's recording. His wife's recording, and he goes up to the fan. The fan doesn't even recognize him.
That's crazy, dude. You would never see that in the NFL or NBA.
It's like the video when you see the girl that's like 16 years old wearing an AC/DC shirt, and they're playing AC/DC in the background. Like, so you know who's playing there? He goes, no clue.
Yeah.
And she has the AC/DC shirt on. So real quick, and we can move on because I know we got other things to talk about, but. This is my problem with baseball, being such an avid baseball fan like I am. And my love growing up was baseball. Yeah. I loved playing the game. But this is the problem. Trevor was nailing it on in comparison to other sports. But here's the irony of baseball as to why they don't market their superstars. People say they don't have superstars. Bullshit.
Oh, they do.
Bryce Harper's a superstar.
Great
Shohei Ohtani is a global icon.
Yeah.
That man is huge in Asia. That dude's a god in Asia. But here's the problem with baseball and the irony of it. NBA players... NFL players, they're all based on what, unfortunately? Rings, right? In baseball, I guarantee you if I asked 15, 20 baseball fans, just casuals, how many rings did Jeter win? They wouldn't be able to tell you. I could, because I pay attention to what Jeter did in his legacy. But, no, he won 5. Oh, shit. So here's the thing.
He's got a fistful, buddy.
Here's the funny part. No one cares. You know why? How many did Barry Bonds win? 0. And he's significantly better than Derek Jeter, and people would say that to you. Everybody knows that. You know why? Because in baseball, over all other sports, stats matter. Which is why it's so goddamn ironic. The sport that claims to be the biggest team sport cares more about the individual statistics than any other league. And yet you can't market your superstars?
I think the Boston Red Sox
work?
I think the Boston Red Sox were like the last real good team at marketing their players with Big Papi, letting him unleash his personality, Manny Ramirez letting him unleash they let their personalities, they just kind of let them go. The band of idiots and all that stuff. That was like
got suspended.
Right. Yeah, that's also a thing.
I mean, yeah, I'm just saying, like Papelbon, John Lester, a lot of those guys.
And the reaction to PED scandals is something that's also hurt the league. The fact they market more towards the demographics of 35 and above as opposed to 18 to 35.
It's too much of a purist game.
They care more about the older fan than the younger fan, and that's where the NBA and the MLB, or the NBA, NFL, MLS even, are starting to gain more traction, and baseball's starting to slip. Even the NHL is starting to tend more to the younger viewing audiences. That's how you grow as a fucking league, and and Major Leagues just doesn't want to do it. And until they do, we're going to be sitting here talking about these same conversations, as opposed to sitting here going, hey man, I was watching that hour-long special on Mike Trout. We don't see that anymore. We see him on LeBron, we see him on Patrick Mahomes, we see him on Joe Burrow. We don't see him on baseball players. And Mike Trout is just as good at his sport as Patrick Mahomes is at football. That's how great he is. But no one talks about it.
It's crazy because you guys are right. Like, I bet you if you asked like somebody that doesn't like really watch baseball, if you ask them, like, do you know who Alex Rodriguez is? They'll connect the dots with him and J-Lo than him and baseball.
100%
which
correct.
is fucking insane.
And at best,
which is insane.
him as an analyst. Oh yeah, I saw him on TV with Frank Thomas and the guys talking.
They won't remember.
You do know he's one of the greatest players to ever live, right?
This is the sad thing. This is the sad thing. You mentioned
the two biggest contracts.
You mentioned hockey in the NHL. Listen, as much as I respect hockey and hockey players, it's a brutal sport. It's a very tough sport, and I respect those guys. It's not that popular in the U.S. It's a niche sport in the U.S. And that's what I don't want the MLB to become, a niche sport, a niche fan base, where it's like, oh, you're a baseball fan? Oh, tell me about that. You know, like, everyone should be baseball fans. It's a great sport. You know, it's an international. It's one of the best international sports. We have some of the best international athletes in the world playing in the MLB.
You guys know how bad I would love it if we had a segment on this show every week where I could talk baseball?
Bro, I respect.
Do you realize how much I love baseball? I love baseball more than any other sport.
Well, especially
but
for
I can't
international,
talk about it because
for international reasons.
Yeah.
The MLB, the NBA, and the NFL is far behind in international players. Most of them are nationally grown players, which is fine, which makes it king in the U.S. But the NBA has adapted and made international, even back in the 90s, made international players. You know, Mutombo and Hakeem Olajuwon, the Manu Ginobili's, and guys like that. Kobe Bryant's not even from the U.S. These guys, they brought from
Italy. That's right.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So
insane.
These guys, the NBA adapted to their stars, and they made it an international game. The MLB could be thriving with
and
that.
Shows like
There's
ours,
so many good international
shows like
players.
ours can't talk about it with any true conviction because it's too regionalized of a sport anyway. They don't market it nationally like the NFL does. Like a Thursday night football game between the Titans and Browns. I'm watching that game.
Yeah.
I'm watching that game. But a Tuesday night game against the Mets and the Orioles, I'm not watching that.
And the NFL knows how to thrive on narratives too,
right?
Storylines, and that comes with social media.
Yes, dude.
That comes with pushing drama and things like that to make the game more interesting. Granted, I will say there are so many baseball games per year that does kind of like kill the thrive for every single matchup. And the NBA has a lot of games too, but not nearly as much. We're not talking 160, 180 games.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the NBA or the MLB has a lot of work to do. I love and I respect the game. It's a part of my childhood, going to a lot of shitty Royals games. But it's just there's still nothing like going to a baseball game, man. Going to the park is just something that every person should experience and go to. And I just want it to be special again. You know what I mean? I want that game to be special again. I think they got a lot of work to do.
100% agree.
All right. Just a couple more questions. Well, just one more question, but I want to split it into two. UFC 283, obviously last week, we saw. I want to talk about the Brandon Moreno fight second. So we'll go with Glover Teixeira, Jamal Hill. Reactions.
I don't know if I've ever left a fight with more respect for a fighter than Glover Teixeira than that one right there. I'm being dead serious. Trevor and I watched this fight together. Jamal Hill was whooping his ass. That alone, the fact that Glover survived that fight, did not get knocked out, did not get choked out, nothing. The fact he survived that fight already garners all the respect in the world. But it wasn't the fight that made me respect Glover Teixeira more than I do right now. It's the fact of what he said afterwards. Because we saw in the Moreno fight when he beat Figueiredo, and Figueiredo's from that around that area, they were throwing stuff at Moreno. It was a disgrace what we were seeing. Moreno had to be escorted. They were running him out with security because they were throwing all kinds of shit at him from the crowd. Glover Teixeira said after the fight, because most times when dudes get defeated, they just walk off on their own, they're pissed off, whatever the case is. Teixeira not only retires himself, but he doesn't make it a spectacle out of him. He said, hey, I'm retiring. I put my glove on the octagon, or on the mat, we're done. But he said at the end of it wasn't his walk-off speech. He said, I'm going to walk out with Jamal, and I want all of you to respect him as I walk out with him. And he was basically setting it up to where you're not going to throw anything. I'm expecting you guys to have class because I'm from this area. I know you guys love me, but I'm going to walk next to him, and we're going to walk out of this octagon together. You're not going to disrespect him like you disrespected Moreno. And it was powerful. I got chills when I heard him say that. Like, that is when you know a man understands the validity of a champion. Because Jamal Hill is now a worthy champion, a guy that deserves to be where he's at. And you saw the emotion overtake Jamal Hill. You saw how much he's come through and how much he's fought to just get. And I love the conversation he had a couple months ago talking about this matchup about, I don't know what I'm capable of yet, but I'm going to find out after this fight. It was the most honest, like, authentic. It was just two authentic human beings that are great at what they do. One is at the tail end of his career, now retired, and one is just now really getting to his peak in his early 30s. It was just, I felt like it didn't get enough like attention. I felt like that the ending of it all, the emotion of one guy and the other guy talking about, I'm walking out with him. Please show him respect as a worthy opponent. It felt like a movie. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes we get those moments in reality where it's like, man, this feels like I'm watching like a Rob Reiner film or something touching, you know, like a Ron Howard movie. It's just these touching elements to it. That's what it felt like, and I have nothing but love and respect for Glover Teixeira. What an insanely great career this man had, and I am so happy for Jamal Hill as well, man. That guy deserves all the praise and glory in the world, because like I said, in all seriousness, he whooped Glover. I mean, Glover had like 4 different eye sockets after that, because there's just openings all over his face, man.
Yeah. He couldn't even put him away, though. That was the crazy part. Like, Glover was taking I think Jamal Hill set a record for total strikes. He had 248 total strikes.
Unbelievable. I think Sean O'Malley had the original record.
Yeah, and then 232 of those strikes were significant strikes.
Yeah, dude.
180 to the head. Like, what the hell? And the dude was still standing. Yeah, I mean, it was a passing of the torch for sure. It was Jamal is a guy who's worked his ass off to get here, and I think Teixeira has nothing but respect for guys like that, guys who's come from the gutter, and that's Jamal's story, man. Yeah. He's come from nothing, and the emotion that you saw in his face after that win, it was just it's priceless moments like that, you know what I mean? So, and that's why I love this sport, the passion that comes with this sport, and I don't think there's anything more passionate than man-to-man combat, hand-to-hand combat between two individuals. One comes out alive. You know, that kind of mentality is just something that's special within competition, because you know the degree of damage that can be done in these kind of things, and that's what makes this sport so great. And saying that was the display. I mean, you couldn't ask for it. That's one of the better main events we've seen in a while. You know, two guys just throwing hands, man, just standing up. I know there was Teixeira had 2 takedowns, but overall, the whole fight was just 2 guys just standing up, just throwing hands the whole time, man. And Teixeira took a beating, man. That was crazy. The fact that I thought he was going to be done numerous times, and he still was alive. It was just wild how that dude at that age can take that kind of a beating and still stand, still be cognizant enough to speak at the end of that, you know, and show love at the end of that. Just shows how class of an act Teixeira is, and, you know, in his hometown in Brazil to lose that way and still have the respect for Jamal in that instance. Nothing but respect, man, and humility there. So it was a great fight. 2 guys there was moments there, man, where Jamal was catching the bad end of some of those Teixeira hits, and he had him shook a couple times, and we were like, oh shit, is he gonna catch him? Because we all know it takes one good hit from Teixeira and you're out. So there was moments there where I was kind of second guessing, but there was just an overwhelming amount of significant strikes landed on from Jamal there. But 2 respect between 2 individuals, 2 guys, one guy, the 2 different trajectories. These guys here, Teixeira would have over 40 plus fights in the UFC alone. It's crazy. And then Hill, a guy that's on the rise and is now a champ. Is looking for challengers. So this is just cool to see that. But yeah, great fight, man. Couldn't have asked for a better main event.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's talk Figueiredo versus Moreno.
Yeah, so we all picked Moreno in this fight. I said that I felt that this was the coming of age for Moreno to prove once and for all that he is the real champion. He's the deserving champion. He's the better fighter, even though Figueiredo's been nothing short of all time in his career. Moreno whooped his ass straight up. It looked like Moreno was in a different tier, and I mean that with respect to Figgy, because like I said, Figgy is on the line of being a Hall of Fame UFC fighter.
Yep.
And it looked like light work. I mean, the entire fight, it never felt like Figueiredo had the upper hand. Now, the fight didn't last very long, but Moreno was efficient, he was deadly, he was poised, he was composed, but more than anything, he was the superior fighter. And it was proven once again in this fight, and this will be the finality of what they are and what this rivalry has been.
Yeah, please.
Moreno put a stake in he put the stake in the ground. He is the best at what he does at that weight class, and I am so proud of that kid for what he does, because he's overcome a lot in his personal life, but also in the fact that he was stripped of his belt in a fight he did not lose. Yeah. We saw this fight, and then he proved it once again, man. He dominated Figueiredo, and I got nothing but love and respect for what Moreno did in this fight.
Yeah, I love this guy, man. How do you not love him? He has like the best personality in this sport right now. The dude just, it literally is just full of joy every time he walks into the octagon. He's like the most likable guy. I don't know how you can't like this guy. He's out there punching people and showing his dominance with this smile on his face, like he's a 12-year-old kid out there, in the candy store. You just got to, how do you not love it? I mean, this guy embodies just pure passion and joy for a sport that he loves. The dude's 29 years old. 2-time champ already. He's gonna have another 6, 7, 8 years maybe of a run. You know what I mean? And he's 21. He's got his record 21-6. And then Figueiredo was 21-3 in the UFC, or in his combat sports record. This is one of the best equally matched matchups we've seen in a while. That's why there's been as many fights as there has been. I don't think Moreno should have ever lost any of these fights. Never should have had his belt taken away by decision. That's bullshit to me. You don't lose a belt by decision. That should not happen to me.
Especially when it was as close as it was.
But statistically, he won that fight. That was what was so frustrating. He had more significant strikes. He had more control time and more takedowns. It didn't add up. That felt like a strange scenario there. I remember even Joe Rogan was talking about that. That should not have went that way. Similar to the recent Sean O'Malley fight. That I love Sean O'Malley, but I don't believe he beat Gane in that fight.
I mean, he did land more signitigant strikes, but he was dominated in the ground game and everything like that.
That was a very close one. And I'm glad O'Malley got the win, but that was rough. That was a rough decision.
Even a better performance.
Joe Rogan had the eye roll at the end of that, but and he loves O'Malley, but that was a strange outcome there. But nonetheless, he got the win. But yeah, Moreno, man, such a bright future for this guy. I'm excited to see who is the next challenger. Another challenger outside of Figueiredo. Granted, Figueiredo, like you said, is on pace to be a Hall of Famer. The guy is one of the best in that division for sure. Did he talk about moving up?
Yes.
Okay, so that was a storyline.
Because Moreno's the man.
Yeah, that's why the fights are over. Like that's a closed chapter because Figueiredo is moving up.
That's interesting. I'm really interested to see who's going to go fight. You guys heard about Conor McGregor making his comeback. Conor McGregor recently, I guess they're announcing like a 3-fight contract or something.
I hope so. I
hope so too. I just hope he doesn't get knocked
needs
out.
Him.
Yeah,
and quite frankly, Dana White needs him after the whole crap that's gone down
lately?
with this. Yeah, he's always chiseled.
He's juiced though.
Yes,
he's been juicing.
Yes,
he's juicing, bro.
2 weeks from now, that's going to be a great card. Just giving you guys a heads up.
Bro, Conor's the greatest showman in the sport has ever seen.
No, but the card Eddie's talking about is the one with
Makachev with Volkanovski.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that might be the most.
That's be fireworks.
That might be the best head-to-head matchup we've seen since John Jones and Gustafsson.
Oh.
That might legitimately be that.
Yeah, Cyril Gane and John Jones might be the biggest heavyweight matchup we've ever seen.
But I'm saying, like, at the peaks of their powers.
Yeah. Like, the Gustafsson 2, especially the second one.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Like, this is we can talk about that another time. Yeah. Volkanovski, and I don't know who I'm picking in that. I probably will not know.
So many good cards coming up here, man. But yeah, back to Moreno, my guy, man. I love this dude so much. Dominated this fight.
Yep.
Almost 7 minutes of control time to Figueiredo's 35 seconds.
Yep.
3 takedowns to Figueiredo's 1. 85 total strikes to Figueiredo's 24. 48 significant strikes to Figueiredo's 19. And 37 of those strikes were to the head of Figueiredo. So it was just an absolute dominant performance. We knew he went out there and proved who the better fighter was once again and once and for all, because this whole saga is over here. So I'm so glad he got that belt back. Much deserved. Should have never had it taken away from him. And the dude did it with a smile on his face.
Yep.
You know what I mean? How confident can you be to go out there and get that belt back with a smirk on your face?
And a hostile environment.
And walking, running out of the tunnel with shit being thrown at you, beer cans being thrown at you. He probably loved it though. You seen it when he was running out. He's laughing the whole way. How can you not love this guy, man? Like he's a kid in the candy store out there just taking names and taking belts.
The crazy thing is, like, you also have to put in perspective, like what happened leading up to this fight, which is his training thing with the whole suspended from UFC and all that shit, and
that looked for our guy, man.
And still him being able to come out there and destroy him.
Yep.
He beat his ass.
Yeah.
Figueiredo. I don't think Figueiredo won any of those rounds. I think the second one was a little close in between both of them. And I told you guys, I think it's more of a draw in the second one, but I think the cards gave it to Moreno. The first round dominated, third round dominated. So Figueiredo had to knock Moreno out for him to win that fight.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
100%.
Yeah. So that's it for me.
Awesome. I appreciate the Eddie Hour. It's always good to know what Eddie's what he's looking at, what he wants to discuss in the world of sports, because obviously we always have a lot to talk about here, but it's always good to break free of what the main topic is and get out there and talk about MMA, baseball, NBA, whatever it is we want to talk about. And this also comes to use after the football season, because there's a lot we have to focus on when the NFL offseason begins. So this is always good to keep us hydrated and ready for that, because we know that those are always the times where we have to really go out there and find out what we want to talk about on the show, because the NFL feels like it just serves us content. When the NFL offseason's over, I mean, obviously you have like the trading situations, the free agency, you have the draft, you have training camp in the summer. It's always fun, though, to talk about these other things that I know other people are interested in as well. But we do need to get to some topics here, guys. It's time to talk about the NFL Conference Championship. We have I think, and before we begin, I want to say and I want to address that this is, for the first time in what seems like forever, we have the 4 best teams in the NFL playing in the conference championship games. That's not always the case. You'll get a hot team here or there that was underachieving throughout the regular season.
Team, yeah.
There's always a team like that seems to sneak into that Final Four. This is the first time, and I'll have to look back, but it's been a minute where the 4 best teams that we saw all season long, really get there and get to that point. And I think that's awesome. And I think it's a great thing that we as fans, as NFL fans, not just Chiefs fans, NFL fans appreciate when this happens. It's not very often that happens, because you truly get a sense of the best will win. Whoever wins, that's because, man, they took care of business all season long. They're the best team to do it. Because I will say, the Giants in 2007 and the Giants in 2011 were not the best team in the NFL. They won the Super Bowl. Yeah. The 2012 Ravens were not the best team in the NFL. Won the Super Bowl. Like, we've seen teams win the Super Bowl that were not the best team. One of these teams is going to win. I think that will give them that crown. They were the best team this season. So I want to start with the 49ers and Eagles. Look, I told you guys from the very beginning of the season, I was on the IOW Sports Network show a couple of days ago, and they were asking me the same question about these two teams. I said from the beginning of the year, the 49ers are the team to beat in the NFC. I picked them to get to the NFC Championship. I picked them to go to the Super Bowl. That was 2 quarterbacks ago. I thought that was going to happen with Trey Lance. He gets hurt. I said, you know what? They still can do it because they have done it with Jimmy Garoppolo. He gets hurt. Then it's some kid that I have never heard of in my life named Brock Purdy out of Iowa State coming in as a 7th round Mr. Irrelevant rookie quarterback, and they haven't lost since. 7-0. He's been balling out. He's been everything they need at quarterback, which isn't much, albeit they don't need much at quarterback with Kyle Shanahan's scheme and that defense and that offensive line and those weapons. But he's been everything they needed and more, even better than what Jimmy Garoppolo was, which is why I feel even better about my pick than I did at the beginning of the year. But on the other side of this, we have a team that, by the way, Eddie nailed this year on his prediction as what this record was going to be for the Eagles, 14-3. That's what they were, and they probably should have even been better had Jalen Hurts not got hurt in that game against the Bears. I think it was in week 16 or week 15, whatever it was. But if you look at this matchup, man, the Eagles are coming into this with just as good of a team. I mean, if you look at it, the 49ers have an elite defense. The Eagles have an elite defense. The 49ers have an elite offensive line. The Eagles have the best offensive line in football. The 49ers have a plethora of deadly weapons. The Eagles have maybe the best wide receiving core in the NFL. Or at least the best weapons in the NFL. You can make the argument. The 49ers have a young, promising quarterback in Brock Purdy. The Eagles have a young, promising quarterback in Jalen Hurts, who was an MVP candidate this season. But there are 2 massive differences at this current time between these 2 teams. They're going to decide this one, and I'm going to get to that in a second. The 49ers lead the NFL in motion rate on their offense, yards after the catch, and attempts inside the numbers. The Eagles' defense ranks top 10 in the league against all 3 of these categories. So what San Francisco typically does best offensively, Philly can shut down. And what the Niners can't defend is what the Eagles do and do well. So what will the matchup come down to? the two massive differences at this current time between these two teams, and that's coaching and playoff experience. Both heavily favor the 49ers. And look, Nick Sirianni is a very promising head coach. I like the guy. I think he's got promise. His team buys in, and the results are there. So this is in no way a knock or discredit of what he's done. I think he should have been a head coach candidate or head coach of the year candidate. Wasn't even on the ballot, which is just absurd.
Crazy.
But Sean McDermott was. Don't even get me started on it. But let's be honest here. Let's state the facts. Kyle Shanahan is not only the better head coach, but has accomplished far more in the postseason so far to their career comparisons. And it's not just that. A lot of the current players on this 49ers roster have been a part of that said success. We know the Eagles won the Super Bowl 5-6 years ago. There's not a number of guys on that Eagles team that were a part of that. A lot of new, younger guys are leading the way. I know Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, guys like that are on the team still. But there's not half the roster still on this team. That was a while ago.
Shit, even Darius Slay doesn't have that much playoff experience.
If you look at this Niners team, I just pulled some recognizable names. It's a list of players on this 49ers team that have been a part of the successful playoff run they've had over the last 4 or 5 years. Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Eric Armstead, Dre Greenlaw, Jimmy Ward, Kyle Juszczyk, Mike McGlinchey. That's 12 players. You have 22 starters. So over 50% of their starters were on the team that were on the team that went to the Super Bowl in 2019 against the Chiefs. And most of these players are still very much in the prime of their careers, if not have gotten in their prime of their careers since then. Fred Warner wasn't in the prime of his career. He's just now 26. Nick Bosa was a rookie. The only old player on this entire list right here is Trent Williams. I guess Kyle Juszczyk, who's in his 30s now, but he's a fullback, and he's just used as a specialty player. All these guys have been a part of 3 NFC championship runs and the Super Bowl run, as I already mentioned. And that's not even factoring in their offseason acquisition of cornerback Charvarius Ward, who came off 3 straight AFC championship runs and 2 Super Bowl appearances with the Chiefs going into his career with the Niners. This 49ers team comes into this matchup with 5 more playoff games over the last 4 seasons. With Kyle Shanahan's elite playoff game plan and scheme, along with experience factor, the edge clearly goes in the favor of the 49ers. Now, I'm saying all this with this in mind. I know the Eagles have an MVP candidate at quarterback. Jalen Hurts clearly gives the Eagles an advantage at quarterback. But let's not pretend as if Brock Purdy hasn't been just as good as Hurts over the last 2 months, and that Purdy hasn't been just as good, if not better, than Hurts in their playoff careers. Let's look at the numbers. In the last 7 games, Brock Purdy is completing 68% of his passes, 235 passing yards per game, 15 total touchdowns, only 2 interceptions with a 117 quarterback rating. That's absurd. Jalen Hurts is completing 3% fewer of his passes. He averages 1 yard per game less, has 2 more total touchdowns because obviously he's a savant at running the football, but he has 1 more interception, and his quarterback rating is 19 points less. And we can't ignore, again, the fact that both Hurts and Purdy have not only played in the same amount of playoff games in their careers, but Purdy is 2-0 in his career, with Hurts being 1-1, while Purdy has been the better quarterback. For instance, Jalen Hurts has a 79 quarterback rating. He averages a little over 200 yards. He has 3 total touchdowns and 2 interceptions in 2 playoff games, where Brock Purdy has a 110 quarterback rating, averages over 250 yards per game with 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in his postseason career. Against any other NFC opponent, I would pick the Eagles because they would have at least 2 to 3 massive advantages. Massive advantages. Because they are clearly better than anybody else out there in the NFC outside of the 49ers. They have none of these advantages against the 49ers. Which is why this game is going to be ugly. It's going to be close. It's going to be physical. It's going to be grueling. It's going to probably be boring at times. The defenses are going to be the ones that dictate this game. Which is why I am confidently taking the more proven coaching staff and the more proven and experienced team. Give me the 49ers in this matchup. I'm not budging at all. I feel better about their quarterback position than I did at the beginning of the season. I'm a big Trey Lance guy, but I think Brock Purdy is playing it as good as anybody in the Kyle Shanahan scheme can play it. I think their defense has clicked since Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs went there and clapped them cheeks in San Francisco about 12 weeks ago. They haven't lost since. They've dominated their opponents. They're giving up 16 points per game since that Chiefs game. They've beaten 8 different opponents by 10-plus points. I think the Eagles are the best team that they could possibly face. I think this is the worst matchup for both of these teams, but I'm giving Kyle Shanahan the advantage here, a team that knows what they're doing in these moments over Nick Sirianni, a team that's still very much in the youth aspect and era of what they're going to try to do as the years go on. Trevor, what do you think?
Yeah, there's a couple of storylines going into this matchup, but you didn't touch on. I think Christian McCaffrey's injury is something definitely to monitor. He barely practiced at all this week leading into this game. He's dealing with a calf issue. It's like a strain or something. It was bothering him last game too, and he was in and out on the sidelines trying to stretch out that calf, and he barely practiced this week. So I think that is a bit concerning if I'm Sam Fran. I think this matchup is about as even as you can get. Like you said, you announced all the similarities between the two teams offensively and defensively. Even though I think the secondary of the Eagles is much better than the secondary of the Niners, the corners especially. The corners of the Niners can definitely be had. I think this game's actually going to be higher scoring than you think. I think the defenses are really good. Obviously, two elite defenses going at it. But I like the offensive players in this game, though. I think the George Kittles and the Deebo Samuels, and the Brandon Ayuks, and obviously the A.J. Browns, Devonta Smith, and guys like that can definitely go get theirs. And I think they will. I think this is going to be a higher score. I'm taking the over in this game.
Do you know what the over is right now?
I think it's 43, 44, something like that.
46.5.
Okay, yeah. I like the over, man. I think both these teams are going to – you talk about the coaches. Sirianni, I think, is definitely gaining traction as one of the better coaches in this league. I think the offensive outpour that they put on the Giants was an absolute shellacking, man. And that's a very well-coached team. Not a great defense, but a team that knows how to keep games close all year. They're in almost every single game. They don't. The fact that they went out and poured those points on, I think A.J. Brown's due for a big game. I don't care what cornerback is on him. I don't think any one of those guys out there in San Fran can hold him. That's a tough matchup for those corners. Charvarius Ward's gotten burned a lot this year. I think that's a tough matchup for any of them. So if Jalen Hurts can deliver some balls, which I think he will, because he's very good at evading pressure and keeping plays alive with his legs. I think this is going to be a long day for both teams. I think this is going to be very competitive. I'm picking the Niners to win this game just because that was my pick. I think they're the best team in the NFC. But another thing, too, storyline-wise going into this game is this game's in Philly. Philly's a tough place to go play and win as the visitor. That's a raucous crowd. They're going to let you hear it, similar to Arrowhead. They're a very raucous crowd, very loud, very intimidating at times. Granted, I do believe that the Niners roster overall has been tried and tested. They've been in big games. And they're on a great run. They haven't lost since we beat them. You know what I mean? So I like what Brock Purdy's doing, but I think there's a moment here where we got to maybe, come to terms with the fact this could be a moment where he drops the ball a little bit, and the rookie jitters maybe show a little here in this game. I could see him throwing a pick or a pick six in this game. I could see that happening because especially if McCaffrey's not going to be out there as much as we would like him to be with this calf. I know they got Elijah Mitchell, who's a solid backup guy, a rotational guy, but he's also a guy that can go down at any moment with an injury. We've seen it already 2-3 times in his young career already. So I do trust the coaching of Shanahan. I do trust the run blocking scheme of that offensive line to go and move people. That's what they do. That's what they do best, better than anybody in the league. That is a tough defensive front to run against as well. But the Eagles do play a pretty bend-don't-break defense, so they will let you go get some yards and move down the field, and they tighten up when things get within the 20s. So I think this is going to be a fun game, actually. I think this is going to be a shootout. I think this is going to be some points scored here. I think both quarterbacks play well. I think there's a good chance that the Eagles win this game. But I am picking the Niners to edge them out, just like you said, with the experience and the guys that have been there and done it before. And the inexperience of Jalen Hurts. This is a big stage for him. This is a big, can he rise to the occasion here? This is a big moment for Coach Sirianni. Can he rise to the occasion and overcome, say they're trailing, can they overcome that defense and make a run to finish the game and maybe make it closer than the Niners would like it to be? The Niners just went through a battle, man. talk about a defensive battle. They just went through a massive defensive battle with the Cowboys. 2 juggernaut defenses going at it, and there's another juggernaut defense they're going to have to go at it with this year, but with a much better offense in my mind. I think this offense of the Eagles is better and more well prepared, and a tougher matchup for that defense with the mobility of Jalen Hurts. So I love this matchup. I don't think you can get much as equal as this matchup is. I think it's going to be a really fun one, and I think there will be points, and I will take the over. I think there'll be 50-plus points scored in this game. But I am picking the Niners to edge them out. I'd say the Niners by 2 or 3 points to finish out this game.
Real quick, the reason why I'm not picking this game to be a high-scoring game is because of the fact that, and I agree.
The Niners don't want this to be a high-scoring game.
I definitely agree.
Eagles
with
are
you
the better offense.
that if I had to choose a secondary in this matchup, I'm clearly picking the Eagles.
Yeah,
because I agree with you. You saw against really good quarterbacks, the Niners defense does give up yards in the air. Mm-hmm. But I will say this. As good of a quarterback as I think Jalen Hurts is, and he's a very good quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I had him 19th in the league going into this season.
Doesn't make a lot of mistakes this year.
He's 100% a top 10 quarterback now, without question. I would probably have him at 7 or 8. The issue, though, is we know that their offense is predicated on the run game. We know that they have play action. They love the play action. Sirianni plays that very similar style of Doug Peterson, Andy Reid, where they, the Alex Smith era, Andy Reid, where they base it on the play action, rollouts, things like that. So with a mobile quarterback. The problem, though, is this game comes down to the run game, because we saw the Eagles against the Giants had like 260 rushing yards. They ran all over the Giants. Here's the problem. They're running into the second-best run defense in the league. Mm-hmm. The Niners were only 14 yards behind the Titans this year for the best rush defense in the league. And even with, on the flip side, the Eagles have the 16th best rush defense, so they're very average. Good, not bad, just average. Even if Christian McCaffrey is 70% of himself, I still think he could be effective, even if he doesn't play, though. I believe that Elijah Mitchell and Deebo Samuel, being the running backs they're capable of being, can do enough. I do believe they would do enough, because Deebo Samuel, he's not a running back, but he is at the same time. Yeah. He's a guy that we've seen him do it throughout the last couple of years as a Percy Harvin type of player. And with Elijah Mitchell being a guy that really came on as the season went on, with Deebo Samuel having 232 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns this season, I think they could still survive against an average run defense, even if Christian McCaffrey doesn't play. But if Christian McCaffrey does pull this off and ends up playing and is even borderline effective, that's going to give such an advantage to the Niners on the flip side of that. And I think the Niners can do enough. I'm not saying they're going to shut down the Eagles' rush attack. I think Jalen Hurts will be that X factor. But if they can't get Miles Sanders going, and it comes down to whether Jalen Hurts can carry the load on the run game, I feel even better about my pick of the Niners over the Eagles.
Well, and I'll say this, too. The Niners better not play too much man. Because if they can't get to Jalen and they're playing man-to-man defense and they got A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith on the outside and Dallas Goedert, who's healthy now, over the middle, it's going to be a long day for that secondary. Because if they don't get to Jalen Hurts, which is tough to do, he's a tough guy to get, unless he runs into a sack, which he'll do every once in a while. He'll run into the pressure uncharacteristically sometimes. But if they can't get to him and they're doing man blitzes, he's going to eat that secondary up. He's going to chuck that ball up to A.J. Brown. He's going to go win those 50-50 balls every time against Shavarius Ward or whichever cornerback you got on him. Yep. So I think a zone blitz scheme, or a zone overall, I think is the best way to play the Eagles offense. Try to get there with 4, maybe 5. Create some zone blitz packages, mix it up with some stunts and some twists and things like that. But Jalen's tough to get to. He's an agile guy, very mobile guy, and he can make you pay if you play too much man. So I expect a lot of zone blitzes from D'Amico Ryans and that crew, and I expect the Niners win.
Well.
Uh-oh.
Well. I'm picking the Eagles in this game.
Nice.
Why am I picking the Eagles? I just think they're the far better team in this matchup. I think the weapons speak on their own. Deebo Samuel can obviously A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel, I would say equally as talented, equally effective and dangerous. But I just think the Eagles with the Jalen Hurts and then the running back and then that offensive line, who by far is probably the best in the league. It's going to be hard for me to see the 49ers, who I know Joey Bosa and all them, but trying to get to a quarterback with a great offensive line is going to be hard, especially a a quick quarterback that is Jalen Hurts, who can get you on that running game. They're gonna have to find a way to contain him to make sure he doesn't get away from the pocket. It's a tough task for that 49ers defense. They're gonna have to pull a lot of blitz packages, do some kind of thing to get to Jalen Hurts. But at the same time, you do that, Adrian Brown's gonna punish you up in the air. Because like Trevor said, those 50-50 balls, Adrian Brown's gonna get them every time.
Yeah.
And all Jalen Hurts has to do is just put it up there for Jalen Brown to catch it. So that defense, I think defensive wise, I think the Eagles secondary is by far the best secondary in this matchup. You can say the defensive line, I think the 49ers might have a little bit of an edge, but I still think overall, I think the Eagles defense overall is it's a by far better defense than what the Cowboys were.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say the Niners.
No. Than what the Cowboys were, and we saw how Brock Purdy struggled against the Cowboys. I think that's gonna be the same this week. I think this defense could be a little bit more troubling for Brock Purdy, especially him being a rookie quarterback. Obviously, people not seeing a third string led 49ers get this far. Obviously, when Trey Lance went down, there was definitely doubters that this team was going to make it this far, but somehow Kyle Shanahan made it possible. But I do think that Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts are going to do enough to put some points up. I think they're going to go up early. I think that the 49ers are going to try and play catch up ball, and I think that's where Brock Purdy he's gonna fail, especially with the talented defense that this is. And I think that's where the Eagles are going to win the game. If they go in there and score early, I think the 49ers are not good at playing catch-up ball, especially with the third-string quarterback, especially in the kind of game that this is, the amount of pressure that he's going to have. So I'm picking the Eagles in this game.
I want the Eagles to win. I just want to clarify that. I'm picking the Niners, but I would love to see the Eagles win. That's who I want. That's who I'm rooting for.
I just don't see Brock Purdy going out there and destroying this Eagles defense.
But here's the thing: he doesn't have to.
But you don't even know how healthy McCaffrey's going to be.
They still have 4 or 5 weapons that can go off at any given time and capitalize.
Kittle, Ayuk, those guys could eat. Debo could eat. I think Brock Purdy's just got to get the ball out quick and avoid those pressures and just play a smooth, quick game. I think both quarterbacks, that's what they got to do.
I'll make one more point.
I think this is going to be a very, very tight, very low-scoring game.
That's what I'm saying, too. That's how I feel, too.
Most people
defenses are too great. And here's what I'm saying. The comparison, I'm going to bring it up as to why I think this game's going to go the way it does is because if you remember, the only team the Eagles faced this season with Jalen Hurts healthy that can even be really compared to what the 49ers do is like the way they play defensively and have a mediocre, average, undersized quarterback as their quarterback is the Commanders. So you guys remember the first loss the Eagles took this season was at home against the Commanders. And so for instance, the Eagles as a team they finished 4th or 5th in the league in rushing yards per game. Now that would have been a higher if Jalen Hurts would have been there for the final 3 games, but they averaged 148 yards per game on the ground, right? In that Commanders game, the Commanders kept them to 94 total rushing yards.
A lot of zone blitz.
Yep. Their defense was peaking at that time, and they were the 11th in the league at rush defense. The Niners are 2nd, and they're much better overall as a team, the Commanders were, and I think that Brock Purdy's a better quarterback than Taylor Heinicke. So with all that said, and I think Kyle Shanahan, much respect to Ron Rivera, I think Kyle Shanahan's the better head coach, and they forced 4 turnovers in that game because why? Jalen Hurts had to throw the ball more in that game. They were forced to have to gun the ball out. There was fumbles from wide receivers, interception, things of that nature that happened. The Commanders got them out of their element. I think that's what the Niners are going to do in this game as well. They're going to force Jalen Hurts to have to throw the ball. Now, the good thing for Jalen Hurts is he does have A.J. Brown. He does have Devontae Smith. He does have Dallas Goedert. He has guys to throw the ball to, so he can go out there and do that. But if they're getting them out of their element, I feel better about the Niners' chances of capitalizing in turnovers and opportunities to slow the game down, which is going to favor them because, to the credit of the Eagles, they have the better quarterback. So usually when the quarterback is when one team favors on the quarterback side, you want to speed the game up. When it's slowing down is when it gets a little scary because you're limiting your possessions and opportunities to throw the ball and get big plays. So I just see, I understand what you're saying, Eddie, about the Eagles in this matchup. I just think the Niners have so much preparedness for a game like this, and with the similarities of them and the Commanders, I see this game going very similarly to that. And to that point, to Trevor's point maybe, I mean, the Commanders scored 32 points in that game. So you might be right about the over-under, but I see it either way it goes, whether it is a higher scoring game or a slow, uglier 1990-style football game like me and Eddie are anticipating. I think either way, it's going to be a favor of the 49ers. So we've been doing this show now this is going on to our 4th year. As crazy as that sounds, guys. Next month will be 4 years of doing this show.
It's a long time.
We've never done a full NFL season on this show where the Chiefs were in the AFC Championship. Isn't that nice?
Feels good.
Every single year we get to talk about the Chiefs hosting the AFC Championship. I feel spoiled here, quite frankly. I feel very spoiled about this one. I don't take it lightly. Because for all we know, this is the last time in our lifetime this happens.
All the roses getting smelled.
I don't believe it. I don't believe that's the case, but it could be. Who knows? What happens? So I savor every single one of these, and I never take it for granted. But I ain't gonna lie to you guys. This feels like this is where the Chiefs belong. All year long. I know Eddie had the Bills winning the Super Bowl, and I apologize for that horrific take, Eddie. But you know what? We all make our mistakes. I had the Colts winning the number 1 seed in the AFC, so I'm gonna hold my L as well.
Yeah.
But this felt like this is what it was supposed to be all along. I didn't have the Bengals in the AFC Championship. I thought they were going to take a step back this year. The team ended up absolutely springing out and doing what they needed to do to get to where they're at now and get back to the AFC. This is the first rematch in the AFC Championship, I think, since like 2001. It's been a long time since this has happened. But it feels right. It feels like what was supposed to happen is what happened. All this bullshit about the alternate sites, neutral sites for the Bills and Chiefs supposed to happen. And quite frankly, if we're being honest here, from a matchup perspective, selfishly, I would have preferred that. Because I think the Chiefs would have whooped the Bills' ass in an alternate site. The way the Bills have been playing for the last 2 months, I think the Chiefs would have won that game by 20 points. But this is what's supposed to happen. The Chiefs deserve to have a home game in the AFC Championship. And they deserve to face a team that has had their number for the last calendar year. 3-0 against the Chiefs. And we've seen the line move all over the place from the Chiefs starting out at, I think, point and a half favorites to when they started to hear about Patrick Mahomes having a high ankle sprain. It moved all the way to 2.5 for the Bengals, to then Patrick Mahomes out there doing pirouettes and running around and doing drills and practice, to now, as it currently stands, the Chiefs are minus 1.5 favorites again. So it's essentially now a pick'em.
It's been a pick'em.
It's been a pick'em the whole time, if we're being honest. I want to discuss, and I'm going to go into some detail here because I want Trevor and Eddie to rally with me on this one, because I think that there are some... This has been a fun week. Let me just put it like that, because for the first time, I'm somebody that is so passionate about this team, and I get so protective of this team, and I go out there and I fight for this team on Twitter, and I break down numbers, and whenever I see the media picking the opposition, I start, all right, cool, yeah, all right, bet, and I start getting in my mode. But this time, I approached it a lot differently. I was okay with the majority of people. I mean, the majority of people picking the Bengals. Because you know why? This isn't the Bills we're talking about. The reason I would get so pissed off about the Bills and Chiefs stuff and how everyone was picking the Bills to win the Super Bowl and Josh Allen winning MVP and that they've overtaken the Chiefs is because they've never earned it. The best they've done is come close to winning but didn't win and lost in overtime because they couldn't stop the Chiefs with 13 seconds left in regulation. The Bengals are a team that have not only beaten the Chiefs in the regular season, but have beaten them in the postseason in their house. This is the team that deserves that respect. And if you guys remember, we had that rivalry debate all those months ago, talking about the Chargers and Bills and who's the rivalry of the Chiefs. I said, if there was a rivalry for the Chiefs, it's the Bengals, because they have the Chiefs' number at results and how they win games against the Chiefs, both in regular season and postseason. And that's the team I would give that respect to. And look where we're at. It's them again. And we heard all week long about, Patrick Mahomes, he's got a high ankle sprain. You're not going to get the best out of Patrick. He's not going to be the same. I got some numbers to alleviate some of that anxiety and pressure that some Chiefs fans are facing when going against this Bengals team. And then I'm going to get really into this matchup. So remember in 2019, week 1, against the Jacksonville Jaguars, Patrick Mahomes, early in the game, suffers the same exact injury to the other foot, I will say, but the same exact injury that he suffered, ironically, against the Jaguars in 2023. high ankle sprain. Patrick Mahomes did not leave that game. He was on the sidelines, got taped up, went right back into that game. And he still played very well. This game against the Jaguars, he still played very well, but you could see that it was definitely hurting him. Andy Reid comes out this week and says this injury that he suffered currently is nowhere near as significant as it was in 2019. I don't know if you guys remember what Patrick Mahomes did in the next 2 weeks after having that high ankle sprain. He went on the road to the Raiders, and he went on. And by the way, that Raiders field was terrible. It was a baseball fucking field, by the way. Remember all those years of playing in that Oakland Stadium, that butthole they called the black hole. But he went out there and had 443 yards and 4 touchdowns at half. At half. I mean, the yardage was a little bit different at the end of the game, but he had over 300 passing yards and 4 touchdowns at half. The following week, 6.5 days later. Then the next week, they go to Baltimore, a team that had the MVP on the team, a very good defense, on primetime, and threw 3 more touchdowns, 0 picks, and had over 300 passing yards. I think it was like 385 passing yards. So in the following 2 games, Patrick Mahomes, oh, by the way, without Tyreek Hill and Eric Fisher, because they both were injured for the first 5 weeks of the season, went out there and averaged 409 passing yards, had 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, with a 131 quarterback rating.
With DeMarcus Robinson as his number 2 receiver.
And Sammy Watkins.
Yeah.
And since everybody wants to talk about, what makes Patrick Mahomes great is all of his escapability abilities and, creating outside of the pocket and running and doing all these fun, cool plays that like are circus acts. That's what makes him great. He won't be able to do that in this game. So the Bengals have a serious advantage now. You know what? I'm really sick of hearing that. I think it's an absolute slap in the face and insult to what Patrick Mahomes is as a quarterback. And I'm going to explain why. And since everyone, again, is talking about how he's going to be limited, I want to provide everybody his numbers from the pocket this season. Patrick Mahomes. In the pocket this season, Patrick Mahomes completed 71% of his passes. Had 4,598 yards, 34 touchdowns to only 9 interceptions with 8.3 yards per attempt with a 110 quarterback rating. Let me put it like this, just to add context here. Not only did Patrick Mahomes lead all quarterbacks in touchdown passes with 41, with the 34 that he had from the pocket, that means he only had 1 fewer passing touchdown from the pocket than Joe Burrow and Josh Allen had, period. And to add context even further, so that way people can understand where I'm coming from when it comes to the confidence that I have in Patrick Mahomes, even if he is what we would consider a limited quarterback from the pocket. Let me just show you guys the context of the numbers that he put up, because obviously they're insane to begin with from the pocket. If you were to just break his numbers, I'll just put it right here because I'm sorry I don't have the right here. So if you just put his numbers against every quarterback in the season and just pocket numbers and everybody's numbers total, he would have been first in completion percentage, 4th in passing touchdowns, 4th in fourth in passing yards, 4th in touchdowns, 15th in interceptions, 3rd in yards per attempt, and 1st in quarterback rating. If he just stayed in the pocket all season. Didn't do all that fun stuff outside of the pocket. If he just stayed in the pocket and just threw and threw and threw, he'd have been a top 5 quarterback in the league and still would have probably won MVP.
So you're saying he's good.
Furthermore, when it comes to this matchup, the Bengals come into this game with the 5th best scoring defense. Patrick Mahomes this season versus top 5 scoring defenses, he completed 65% of his passes. He threw 328 yards per game, 7 total touchdowns to only 3 interceptions, 9.7 yards per attempt with a 105 quarterback rating. You guys know what his quarterback rating was for the season? 105. And he did that against top 5 scoring defenses. In last year's AFC Championship, the Bengals scored 11 of their 27 points on 2 turnovers, 1 by 3 in overtime. In Week 13 of this season, the Bengals scored 7 of their 27 points off Travis Kelce's 4th quarter fumble. Harrison Butker missed a field goal, a game-tying field goal from 55 yards out, which he always nails at. With 3:25 remaining, the Bengals won by 3.
Yep.
These games in particular clearly came down to turnovers, special teams mishaps, but also the fact, and this is the important part I want to drive home in this little monologue here before we get to Trevor and Eddie's take. This also came down to the fact the Chiefs simply cannot get to Burrow enough. Only 2 sacks combined in these last 2 matchups is simply unacceptable. I don't care if the defense last year was bad at getting to the quarterback or not, was hobbled, and as inept as their offensive line was last season, Titans sacking him 9 times the week previous, unacceptable. It's not okay.
Yep.
Fortunately, the Chiefs' pass rush is way better than they were even back to week 13 of this season. From weeks 1 through 13, the Chiefs' defense had 36 sacks, which is 3 per game, and 74 quarterback hits, which is 6 per game. Very good numbers. But since week 14, the Chiefs have 21 sacks, which is 3.5 per game, and 51 quarterback hits, which is 9 per game. So they've gone up a whole half sack per game, and 3 more quarterback hits per game over this last 1/3 of the season. The Chiefs' pass rush has taken it to a whole new level, entirely new level, and starts with George Karlaftis and Frank Clark. In the first 12 games, Karlaftis had 2.5 sacks, 7 quarterback hits, and 14 pressures. In just the last 6 games, Karlaftis has 3.5 sacks, 4 quarterback hits, and 7 pressures. So all of his numbers are going up in just 6 games. In his first 10 games, Frank Clark had 3 sacks, 9 quarterback hits, and 18 pressures. In his last 6 games, Frank Clark has 3 sacks, 5 quarterback hits, and 10 pressures. So his numbers, if you doubled them up, would have been better than what they were in the first 10 games. In their Week 13 matchup, the Chiefs sacked Joe Burrow only once with 1 quarterback hit and 1 pressure. The Bengals had an offensive line that consisted of La'el Collins, who's out for the season, Alex Kappa, who hasn't practiced all week, and Jonah Williams, who hasn't practiced all week. I get that the Bills' pass rush only accumulated 1 sack, 3 quarterback hits, and 8 pressures, but that had more to do with the Bills missing Von Miller, as we said earlier, and the weather, as we mentioned earlier as well. The Bengals' hobbled offensive line now faces an elite pass rush that's peaking in a clean climate. I think it's supposed to be a cold day, but there's no snow. It's supposed to be sunny outside, and it's on natural grass. This should worry the Bengals greatly. And Dan Orlovsky tweeted something this week that I wanted to give him credit for. He said, the Chiefs had 241 quarterback pressures this season. Only Dallas Cowboys had more. They contacted the quarterback 198 times. That led the NFL. We should absolutely not just assume Cincy's O-line holds up against them. Joe will have his hands full. I also tweeted out something this week that said, this season, this is an insane stat. This season, the Bengals are 0-3 when Joe Burrow is sacked 5+ times. The Chiefs have 6 games with 5+ sacks this season. So a third of their schedule, they had 5+ sacks. And for those that are giving the Bengals defense the benefit of the doubt based upon that second half of last season's AFC Championship, we have to remember on the flip side that even though this current Bengals defense is still very good, and I always mess his name. Anarumo, I think is his name.
Yeah.
Their defensive coordinator is an absolute genius. They're not the same defense they were last season. The 2021 Bengals finished 11th in sacks this last season. They're 29th this season. Think about that. They were just outside of the top 10. Only 10 more teams had more sacks than last season. They were in the bottom 4 this season. This comes down to Orlando Brown Jr. and Andrew Wiley not allowing a bottom 4 pass rush to dictate the pace of this game on their side of the ball. And I realize that this game is being presented as Mahomes versus Burrow because they're obviously the quarterbacks and the big names of the ticket. But this game will come down to which team can win in the trenches and force the other offense into mistakes. And so far for the last previous games, it's been the Bengals doing that against the Chiefs. Chris Jones and the surrounding pass rushers have 0 excuses, and I mean 0 excuses, to not dictate the outcome of this game. I trust the Chiefs' top-tier offensive line against the Bengals pass rush that, again, ranks 29th in sacks, 12th in quarterback hits, and 16th in quarterback pressures, far more than I trust the Bengals versus the Chiefs pass rush that ranks 2nd in quarterback hits, or sacks, 4th in quarterback hits, and 1st in quarterback pressures. The Chiefs have every capability to beat the Bengals just like they did in their previous matchups. They were all winnable games. The Chiefs had big leads in all 3 games. But now, more than ever, the Chiefs have a great pass rush with a pissed-off Patrick Mahomes that has seen and heard all the disrespect all week long. I even saw, I think it was the NFL or Bleacher Report or whoever said, who's going to have the better career? Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, or Joe Burrow? Like, what are we even doing at this point? Trust me, they pay attention to this shit. The Bengals are coming into Arrowhead. Remember the name, Arrowhead, to face a Chiefs team that will be as focused and determined to make a statement as they have been in years. They have not been more disrespected than they have been this week, I think, in the Patrick Mahomes era. I can't remember a time where I saw more doubt and more just blatant disrespect from even fucking mayors in Cincinnati. Talking about whether Joe Burrow, they do a DNA test to see if that he is Patrick Mahomes' father. That's funny Twitter fodder for that to come from a government official. That's next level. It's weird. That's weird shit, man. And here's another factor that we want to bring up, and I'm gonna hand it to you guys. Something we talked about earlier in the show that our guy Clay Windler, our producer, tweeted out, is the fact there are so many pieces to the Chiefs puzzle that did not play in that Week 13 matchup.
Yep.
Kadarius Toney.
We're a different team at this point.
McCole Hardman. Joe Tooney. Jalen Watson.
Rashad Fenton.
Brandon Williams. None played in Cincinnati this year.
Mm-hmm.
All 5 of those names are legitimate contenders or contributors. Kadarius Toney might be the Chiefs' leading receiver in the playoffs this year when it's all said and done. McCole Hardman has been missing since the Jaguars game earlier this season, and the Chiefs' offense had never looked better with McCole Hardman. Yeah. Joe Tooney, the best offensive lineman on this roster. Jalen Watson, quickly becoming a legitimate cornerback in this league that Trevor just gloated over about that one-handed interception on a good ball from Trevor Lawrence, by the way. And, of course, Brandon Williams, an unsung hero that just gets in the trenches where I'm talking about this game's going to be won. Mm. A big play from a guy like Brandon Williams can change the entire trajectory of this game. And here's my final point, and no one can debate me on this. When the Chiefs bring their best, there is not a team that can beat them. When the Chiefs play at their absolute best, we saw it against the Buccaneers earlier in the season when the Bucs had the number 1 ranked defense at their place. Mm-hmm. Chiefs hung 41 on them. When they went to San Francisco, when the San Francisco 49ers were fighting to keep their season alive, Chiefs went out there and dropped 44 on them. I'm expecting the Chiefs to bring their best this week. I'm expecting them to be pissed off and as motivated as they have ever been as a collective. Even Chris Jones going on the stand, calling it Burrowhead 3 different times in his interview with the press conference last year, or just yesterday. This team's been paying attention. They know what's being said. The Chiefs are going to beat the Bengals on Sunday and advance to their 3rd Super Bowl appearance in 5 seasons. I'll leave it there. Trevor, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, listen. I'm not of the mind. I know a lot of people, a lot of talking heads on TV, and people locally, even some people here maybe have even referred to the Bengals as a team who has the Chiefs number. I'm not of the mind of that. I don't believe that. They've never been better than us. They're not better than us. And as Nick Wright have said, name one thing that they're better than us at. They don't have the MVP on their team. They weren't the better offense this year. They weren't the better defense this year. They weren't better at getting sacks and pressures on quarterbacks this year. We were arguably just as good as a running offense as little as we ran the ball. So I mean, I don't understand where in the matchups it took absolute big mistakes, costly mistakes. And granted, they are opportunistic when we make those mistakes in those games, but that's all that they've been. They were opportunistic and they took advantage of those moments where we let ourselves down, right? Or a costly penalty on our secondary, or some lame holding call on Jamar Chase, against McDuffie and places and things like that, like where Rashad Fenton and costly moments in the games where we've had matchups with them as well, holding calls, things like that. They have never once just straight up outplayed us. They happen to be on the winning column at the end of these games because of blunders and missed kicks and things like that should have kept us in these games. I don't think they've straight up outplayed us in any of these games. We just happen to lose them. I do not believe that they have our number. I don't. I think this matchup is very close. As far as talent for talent, 100%. And the fact that Pat is a little banged up and Travis Kelce apparently is. We haven't talked about that yet on the injury report, a late injury report addition, which you hate to see. That
it was back spasms.
Yeah, that's not a good thing going into this matchup. Granted, I do believe Andy Reid is going to have a game plan ready in this game. because of all the chatter about, we've seen Julian Edelman coming out and talking about how he's got some birdies in his ear, talking about around the Bengals locker room. They have, signs around, did you touch Kelsey? Did you tackle Kelsey? Did you hit Kelsey? So I think that's going to be a massive game plan, going into for this defense, going into this game, them wanting to get into Kelsey and hit him at the line of scrimmage, rough him up. So I think I'm pretty sure that the genius that Andy Reid is, he's going to have other game plans ready to kind of maybe use him as a decoy if they're going to put so much emphasis on Travis Kelsey being the guy. I still think Travis Kelsey's going to eat. We talked about this. I just talked about this earlier in the show. You don't think every single defense going into every single matchup with the Chiefs are going to want to slow down Travis Kelsey, but yet he tends to get his more than he doesn't. Just had 14 fucking catches last week. So you cut that in half. That's still 7 for 60 to 70 yards probably in a touch. That's an average game for Travis Kelsey in the postseason. So with that being said, the Chiefs are the better team in this matchup. They are. They're the better team. They've been the better team all year long. They've been the best team in the AFC all year long. Granted, I know we dropped our matchups. We had losses to both of the Bills and the Bengals this year. But overall, as the season's gone on and the consistency that is the Kansas City Chiefs, we've consistently been the better team all year. We're talking one game separating that Ravens game with the Bengals, whether they're here or not. It took a heroic game on the line of scrimmage to decide a touchdown or not to decide that Bengals game with the Bengals making that play on the line of scrimmage and that dive play there against the Ravens. So, listen, I know they beat us 3 straight times. And I know us as fans and us as the guys here on the Spoken, no way do we want to allow a 4th straight time. And if you think we feel that, and if you don't think we've been hearing the shit talk, imagine that magnetized by 100,000 in that locker room. These guys hear it. Chris Jones hears it, leaning into it in his presser leading into this game, talking about see y'all at ARROWhead. It's just more bulletin material for these guys to have another over my dead body kind of game. And that's not just Patrick Mahomes. That's not just Andy Reid. That's this defense as well. This defense that's been rolling. Frank Clark, who's, got the blood in the water. He's smelling the blood in the water. Chris Jones, who has a lot to prove in this postseason. Has a lot to prove in this matchup more than any other matchup, let alone in the Super Bowl if we make it. Chris Jones, this is his chance to redeem himself for his lack of. Granted, he's been good in this postseason. He was good last week. He opens up other opportunities for Frank Clarks and other guys that, when he demands those double and triple teams at times, when he's getting held every fucking play,
right?
He opens up opportunities for these other guys. But Chris Jones wants to make that play this week. I don't know if there's anybody more motivated this week than Chris Jones. We could talk about Patrick Mahomes being the guy he is, the dog that he is, the competitor that he is. I don't think anybody is more juiced and motivated in this game than Chris Jones. This is not only the fact that he has some numbers he needs to make up for in the postseason, not having those sacks when he has 15.5 on the regular season. He needs to get him some postseason sacks, or make that play for the postseason, because Frank Clark's got his plays.
Right.
You know what I mean? So this is Chris Jones' chance to cash in as well, because the dude is going to be due for another big contract after having the season that he just had. So that's my biggest focus is what is this defense going to do? We know our offense is regardless of how hamstrung and banged up Travis Kelsey might be and how Patrick might be, these guys are going to go get points. We do. We average, 24 points against the Bengals at least. So we're gonna go get points offensively, and this defense is gonna have to rise to the occasion, and they did just that this last week. They played well last week. They played well ending the last few weeks of the season, overall for the most part. So having these guys back, having Joe Thuney back is massive. I think people underestimate the impact of the guy. He's our best offensive lineman. He's our best offensive lineman, and we didn't have him in that last matchup, and that game was decided by 3 points. We didn't have Travis Kelsey, reportedly, he obviously didn't look like himself in that last matchup, was, I believe, ill in that game. Take that for what it is. He's never going to use that as an excuse. But Travis Kelsey being ill, I believe there was an illness going around the entire locker room and a lot of them amongst the league. There was a lot of sicknesses within that week. And I think he was one of those guys that fell victim to that. So, and having Kadarius Toney, to me, is the biggest X factor offensively for this game.
And McCole Hardman.
If he plays. I hope he does.
He's
I know he was cryptic with that picture.
He's going to play.
Well, and I do believe Jody Fortson's going to be playing. I think he's going to be activated before this game.
I'm sorry, I should have told you guys that, but yeah, McCole Hardman is playing.
Okay. Well, I mean, having McCole Hardman and Kadarius Toney in this offense alone, and the fact that Patrick Mahomes is going to, if we want the objective to protect him, to get the ball out quick, who better to get the ball out quick to on end rounds and jet sweeps and quick dump offs with downfield blockers than Kadarius Toney and McCole Hardman? Those guys thrive in those kind of plays. Yep. And Kadarius Toney especially, I want to emphasize on this guy. He's been a game changer for this offense. Immediately, he's been an impactful guy. His first game, getting targets, scoring touchdowns immediately. You know what I mean? So I mean, I think the impact that Kadarius Toney is going to bring in this matchup. And I'm not saying he's Jamar Chase. Obviously, he's not. But his skill set is very similar to Jamar Chase. He's very good after the catch, very shifty, very good at making guys miss, very good at going up and getting the 50-50 balls. Great hands. We've seen the whole adjusting his gloves and getting up and get it. The guy's incredible. He's an incredible athlete, and he's a perfect guy for this offense. I think he will be great for this offense for years to come. But having him in this matchup this time around gives the Bengals something else to defend and something else to make sure that they're not getting beat on. And their secondary can be had, bro. Their corners can be had. And ironically enough, all their shit talk has been coming from that secondary. And I hope they're ready because they better bring their lunch bucket because we're gonna be getting them all the food they can handle. And it's gonna be spicy. You know what I mean? So they better bring that Pepto, baby, because we're bringing it. Listen, man, I don't think I've ever been more hyped up for a matchup in my life. And this is even a Super Bowl. I know we've been in 2 Super Bowls. We've been hyped up for those matchups, but the shit talk that's been going on. And I'm cool with a lot of the stuff that is said, whatever. I know they've been bitching about the coin toss situation, the thing that never happened. They're bitching about a lot of things that never happened. But the Burrowhead thing got me bad. That triggered me, man. I'm not even going to lie to you. The Burrowhead, you're mocking the stadium, the respect of the loudest stadium in the world. One of the best, and I know home field advantage hasn't been as big as an impact in the NFL as of late, but Arrowhead is still one of those lingering home field advantages. Lingering. It's one of those home field advantages that is still a home field advantage. I believe Philly is one of those places as well. That's why I like that advantage that Philly has going in that matchup. But I 100% believe that Arrowhead is 100% a factor. And you can ask Trevor Lawrence when his comments were heading into that game about how it couldn't be much louder than it was over there. It is. It just is. And especially when you're on the opposition side of it, when your offense is on the field and you can't hear, you better have your pre-snap. You better have your signals ready to go because you're not going to be able to hear shit. And I don't know if you're ever going to see a more motivated Kansas City Chiefs than this weekend. The disrespect has been so just all around. Like you said, the mayor, just
multiple
strange.
Times too.
He just came out and came after Quentin Lucas. I don't know if you saw that, calling him a small man and talking about we brought him an extra small Bengals jacket. Yeah. Like, bro, you're coming after the city, not just the Chiefs.
You can tell they're new money because they don't know how to handle.
We're talking about Joe Burrow being Patrick Mahomes' daddy. Listen, at the end of the night, when Joe Burrow goes to bed and when Patrick Mahomes goes to bed, Patrick Mahomes is laying his head down on the pillow with the ring sitting on the counter. There's a difference here. You want to talk about daddy? One's got jewelry, one doesn't. One fell short in the biggest moment. One took advantage of the biggest moment. They're not the same.
Well, and I want to not counter, but I want to react to some of the things you had just said about, what do the Bengals do better than the Chiefs?
Right.
Nick Wright was saying that there's nothing they do better. I'm going to push back on that. Like when I did hear Nick say that, I did hear him say that himself. Here's the biggest thing: they find a way to win the games. They've been winning the games. The Chiefs have been
against the Chiefs,
right. They've had big leads. The Chiefs had a 18-point lead, a 14-point lead, and a 7-point lead going into the second halves. And they find a way to lose these games. It's a lot like with the Chiefs and Chargers, where the Chargers have these opportunities to win games that they simply don't, and that's what's been the difference between the Chiefs and Chargers.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Bengals and Chiefs, to the Bengals' credit, they're outlasting the Chiefs. They're making one fewer mistake or 2 fewer mistakes. Their special teams don't miss field goals. They're not doing the wrong things the Chiefs have been doing in these matchups. So that is one thing. Not to mention the fact that all season long, yes, the Chiefs' defense has gotten better, and they're a better pass rushing defense by far.
Yeah.
But the other things the Bengals do on defense are better than the Chiefs. They were better at passing defense. They were better at overall rush defense. They were better at a lot of things. Like the Chiefs are a good defense. I'm not discrediting what the Chiefs do on defense, but the Bengals are top 5 defense in scoring defense. They're top 5 in rush defense and rushing yards.
Look at the division they're playing.
But I will flip to your credit though about what you're saying. And why I think the key component in this game isn't Joe Burrow versus Patrick Mahomes, just like the other 3 weren't. It wasn't because Joe Burrow was so much better than Patrick Mahomes. Because, guys, outside of that 1 second half in the AFC Championship, Patrick Mahomes has been sensational. He has a 121 quarterback rating outside of those 2 quarters against the Bengals over the last 3 games. He's been sensational. 7 touchdowns to 0 picks outside of that 1 fucking half.
Yeah.
That's what makes it look like, oh, Burrow has actually been better. No, it's been 2 quarters that have been the outcome. Now, the key component in all of this, and the Chiefs winning this game, is physicality. Look at what you just said about the Ravens game and why they should have won that game. They should have been up 24-17 as opposed to 24-17 down.
If Lamar's in that game, the Ravens are moving on.
But even in that game, the Ravens rushed for 155 yards.
Yeah.
With a backup quarterback, knowing good and well they're going to have to run the ball. In Cincinnati, they still got 155 rushing yards. The Chiefs in the 2 games I always bring up about statement games are the Niners and the Buccaneers games.
Yeah.
In the Buccaneers game, the Chiefs not only put up 41 points, they had 189 rushing yards in that game. And against the Niners, they put up 44 points with 115 rushing yards per
Hardman
game.
was a big part of that game.
In those games, yes. Exactly. Thank you. He was in those games. Exactly. Kadarius Toney wasn't even there yet.
Not even there.
But in those 2 games, the Chiefs averaged what? 152 rushing yards. That is 3 yards short of what the Ravens just put on the Bengals 2 weeks ago. And this is in Kansas City. This isn't in Cincinnati with the atmosphere going nuts for them.
Right.
This is in their house against a better pass rush without the weather going against them like they did a week ago in Buffalo. So the physicality of this game, I think that Andy Reid needs to bring out an Alex Smith style of offensive approach in this one where you're not making Patrick Mahomes have to create with his feet. You're going to do dump-offs to Jerick McKinnon, screen passes, little RPOs, and the draw plays, which I'm not a big fan of. But in this particular matchup against a team that does not rush the quarterback well, you want to use draw plays because you're going to get empty boxes. You're going to get light boxes. Going to do drop 8s. Use the draw play with a physical running back like Isaiah Pacheco. And then when you're not, you're dumping off to Jerick McKinnon, who's an incredible pass-catching running back who had more touchdowns this season than Justin freaking Jefferson. Use this against the Bengals. They're going to play that soft defense again. Use it against them because the Chiefs haven't done that in the previous 3 games. They haven't utilized their pass game and the dump-offs as much. They haven't utilized Isaiah Pacheco like they should have. And jet sweeps now with McColl coming back and Kadarius Toney being here and present this time with Joe Thuney being stronger up the middle. These are all advantages the Chiefs need to use against a defense that, like you said, can be got. They can be got. 100%. Eli Apple is a legitimate starter on this team.
Clown.
He sucks.
Clown.
This man was a backup until they lost 2 cornerbacks.
Yeah.
So he's going to be out here playing meaningful minutes. Expose this fool.
Yeah, and I want to push back on the passing defense of the Bengals a little bit. They play 6 games against run-first offenses in their division. 6 of those games are skewed, bro, because those offenses barely throw the ball. When they throw the ball, they're not a good throwing offense. Right. That's 6 games of the year right there. That their defense, their numbers going to be a little skewed as far as how much passing yards they allow.
But even to
things
that
like
point,
we play in our division. Much tougher, stiffer offenses. But even to that point,
the Chiefs played 3 or 4 teams this season, had backup quarterbacks in. They didn't get.
Sure, but I'm saying within our division, we have another elite offensive.
And
that Justin Herbert alone,
and that quarterback did put up numbers.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So of course, and with the youth that we have in our secondary as well, the numbers going to be a little more skewed to their favor because they play 6 games. Running offenses and those against, and when we play a lot high tempo passing offenses with Derek Carr and Justin Herbert, so that's going to be a skewed. And our schedule this year was pretty rough. I know we played some backup guys, and we allowed too much against the Texans and things like that. But either way, sure, I'll give them that. And I know they found ways to beat us, which typically we're the team that finds ways to win. So they kind of beat us at our own games in that way. But I will say I feel they are more opportunistic to our mistakes that we create. I really do. And I'm not saying that just because I'm a Chiefs fan. I'm saying that as a observer of the games that I've watched. The Chiefs were a better team until the very last moments of these games, which is why they were decided by 3 points every single time. That does not sound like a team that has another team's number. Great, and we can even use it as an example, as comparison to how we played the Chargers. We find a way to beat the Chargers, but very well the Chargers could have won a couple of those games in some of those matches as well because they played us well as well. But they found ways to lose. We found ways to be opportunistic and win those games, and making it whether it's a pick 6 in the 1 yard line or something like that. Things like that. But those games could have gone either way. So I don't think either one of those teams really has their number. They just found ways to beat one another. So I get it. I think it's more about the Bengals being opportunistic and taking advantage of the mistakes that we have made in these matchups. And the one I will give them is in the last year's AFC Championship game. Patrick Mahomes just shit the bed. He did. Right. He had the worst half of football he's ever had in his career, and I don't expect that to happen again. I expect like I said, man, motivation is the word here. This is going to be the most motivated Chiefs team you've probably ever seen. The disrespect has been way out of hand. I feel it as a fan. I couldn't imagine feeling as the 1 seed Chiefs offense and team in general that has all the pride in the world in themselves and all the confidence in the world in themselves that are here for a reason, earned every reason to be here, and they're being disrespected like that. Not only are they being disrespected, their fan base is being disrespected, their city is being disrespected, and their stadium is being disrespected. This is our house, bro. We got to go out here and remind people why we're here. Why we're hosting this game for a 5th straight fucking year. We're here for a reason, bro. And we're here to remind everybody, and I fully expect this team to be juiced, ready to go. Travis Kelce's going to be ready to go no matter what the back issue is going on. He's going to be out there. He's going to be giving it all. These guys are all in. The secondary is not a bunch of rookies anymore. George Karlaftis is not a rookie anymore. We're going to go get after Joe Burrow. And we need it, and it's up to us. It's up to the Chiefs. It's up to us, and we know that. I'm sure that's being preached in this locker room. You know what? They're talking shit. They beat us 3 straight times. They're talking shit, and they have the right to do that right now. Regardless if I like the Burrowhead comment or not, that definitely gets under my skin. But it's up to us to go remind them who we are, bro, and why they're coming to our house. Why this is the 5th straight time we're having the Arrowhead Invitational. We got to go remind them, man. And it's up to our offense. This game is going to be won in the trenches. It's going to be up to this offensive line to protect Patrick Mahomes, to make the plays and get it to the playmakers' hands. And it's going to be up to this defensive line to go get after Burrow and then once and for all put him on his ass and take advantage of the injuries that they have and have relentless mindsets. Go get after him. Frank Clark, go get after him. Make plays. Chris Jones, go get your postseason sack, and let's get this dub. Sorry, bro.
Let's hear about it, Eddie. Let's have it.
God damn.
Let's have it.
Chiefs Bengals tomorrow, 5:30 kickoff
Burrowhead Stadium.
at Burrowhead Stadium in Burrow City, Kansas City. I'm Why are you looking at me like that?
I'm just waiting to hear it.
I'm gonna pick the Bengals in this game. Why am I gonna pick the Bengals in this game? Because, like Trevor said, they're opportunistic. How do you fucking say that? Opportunistic. Fuck. I'm sorry. My English is not my first language. But no, they're yeah, we'll skip that word.
Opportunistic. Yes,
Yeah,
it's okay.
we'll
Dude.
skip
You're
that.
good. You're good.
We'll skip that word. But yes, it's the turnovers that have always killed the Chiefs, and I don't know what it is about the Bengals. They seem to get into the Kansas City Chiefs players' heads every single time. I don't know what it is, but that's how they do it, and they know how to do it, and they play it well. Joe Burrow and this offense, it's unbelievable. It's incredible. To have Jamar Chase, you can throw any 50-50 ball to Jamar Chase. He's catching every single one. Doesn't matter who's guarding him. It doesn't matter who's next to him. The only way he doesn't catch this ball is if he fingertips it or he fucks up. That is the only way he does not catch that ball. Then you got T. Higgins, who's another amazing receiver. And then you got their tight end, who is always there to be that escape route for Joe Burrow. They play how do you say it? Like lazy football. Like it's lazy football that it's annoying because of how it works. It's like you're like, why is this working? When it's like he's throwing it for like 2-3 yards and then they're getting 5-10 yards out of it, or he's doing those quick throws, kind of Tom Brady-esque. I'm gonna say
Very vanilla offense.
Yes, a very vanilla. Nothing explosive out of it, but they somehow make it work. They make it work, and they showed it in the past. They showed it this season that a vanilla offense, it works. What they did to the Bills last week was something that nobody thought, especially with them missing 3 linemen. The offensive line been shaken up. That offensive line was great last week. They protected Joe Burrow at like all game.
Can I ask though real quick? Do you believe it was more about their offensive line or the Bills' lack of a pass rush? Because not having Von Miller finally caught up to them, in my opinion. But which one do you think? Because obviously, like Trevor was talking about earlier about that snow on that type of grass, with that lack of a pass rush, You know what I mean? Like, do you think it was more about the Bills or do you think it was the Bengals? Because, I mean, they were missing a lot of pieces.
I feel like it's more about that offensive line. I think that offensive line held up. Everybody thought it was going to be a weak offensive line. When you're missing 3 starters, look at the Chiefs last year, missing 3 starters in the Super Bowl. They got destroyed. Obviously, it was by far a better defense, but yet again, they were exposed. In this weather, missing 3 linemen in this kind of weather, it should have blown up on their face. Because to put up a player that hasn't played all year into the trenches like that in a bad weather game, it calls for him leaving spots open for defensive players just to get to the quarterback, and that wasn't the case. That's my opinion. I'm sure you guys see it differently, but I do think that this Chiefs secondary is going to struggle bad with the Bills with the Bengals wide receivers. We saw it in Week 13 when they were doing the one-on-ones with Jamar Chase, which I don't understand why. I feel like Spagnuolo loves that, and I think he's going to continue on doing that, and it's going to bite him in the ass again. You don't go one-on-one against Jamar Chase, but the Chiefs like to do that, and they turned the ball over. So that defense makes the Chiefs turn the ball over. I don't think I've seen the Bengals turn the ball over maybe more than once. Have they turned the ball over?
We haven't turned the ball over for I think 4 weeks now.
Who, the Chiefs?
No. I'm talking about like in the matchups, in the 3 matchups that we've had
with the Bengals. Yeah.
Well, okay, so in the AFC,
had the Bengals.
I'm
Just the
gonna
recent
be honest with you. I'm gonna be
matchup.
honest with you. I know they're 3-0 against the Chiefs in the last calendar year and change. That first matchup, I don't care what anybody says. That was the worst officiating game I've ever seen in my life, so I'm not even going to address that one. The Chiefs were absolutely jobbed out of that game. Second, AFC Championship, Chiefs had 2 turnovers. This last time in Week 13, they had 1 turnover, and it was the key fumble from Travis
We were
Kelce.
up 7,
So
driving
there
to
were 3
score
turnovers
again.
in the last 2 games.
Yeah. So the Bengals find a way to turn the ball over. It's gonna take a lot for a 70%, 80% Patrick Mahomes. I don't know. I haven't seen real video footage of him of like really planting his right foot down and throwing the ball. Like if you saw that video that they released yesterday, he was really throwing with his right foot off the ground. So I have to see how he is like game time speed. Will he be able to evade the pocket like he usually does? Be himself. Can that offensive line withstand that 3-man rush that the Bengals did to the Bills, and it worked perfectly? We know that the Bengals love to drop 8. So we have to see if Patrick Mahomes takes what the defense gives him, or is he gonna try and play hero ball, kind of like what Josh Allen does when they fall behind on the score.
I will say this: if this was Patrick Mahomes from a year ago, I would be very worried. And that's not a knock on Patrick. Patrick was sensational last season as the season progressed. But you saw why the season was the way it was for the first 8-9 weeks of the season, or I'd say 7, is because the league adjusted to what Patrick Mahomes was doing, and he was too busy trying to find the big highlight reel. You've seen this year as to why he's been so prolific without Tyreek Hill. As the hand was forced, I have to do things that I don't want to do, that aren't sexy, that aren't fun. He still does them, but not at the magnitude he once did, because now he has to play grown-up football, if we're being honest. The Bengals are a defense that play well against him because he still has to make those big throws and big plays, and they play it to where you're not getting any. We're not going to let that happen. The beautiful thing about him having a hobbled leg in this one is now that Chiefs have to game plan all week of let's play a conservative offense that can still be just as deadly. Because we've seen the Chiefs over the last 5-6 weeks play offense similar to that when Jerick McKinnon is leading the team in touchdown receptions. Jerick McKinnon is leading the team in receptions. Jerick McKinnon is leading the team in receiving yards. And the Chiefs are running the ball at a higher clip. Yeah. And another point I want to bring up, Eddie, in response to what you're saying about the Bengals offense being able to do what they want because of the secondary being the way it is, if you look at the AFC Championship secondary the Chiefs had to now, it is significantly different and significantly better. Dan Sorensen was playing significant snaps and minutes in that game. Dan Sorensen's not on this team. Dan Sorensen wouldn't make this team. Yeah. He's not good enough. You also had guys like Ben Neiman playing linebacker. You had Tyrann Mathieu out there playing making business decisions. Charvarius Ward, love him to death, but I think they're in a better situation now than they were with him. And now you have a galvanized secondary of young players, albeit, but guys that for the first 12 games of the season were giving up almost 24 points a game. In their last 6 games, they're giving up less than 20 points per game. Since the Bengals game, they have been galvanized through experiences. I'll give Jason Dunn a lot of credit on this one because he told me that same thing after the Bills game when I was pissed off, and I'm still pissed off about what Spags was doing to Josh Williams in that game, setting him up on an island against Steph Diggs and Gabe Davis, which was the deciding factor of that game. But with that comes experience, and you have not seen this team falter or lose confidence. In fact, they've gained it. Into Trevor's point earlier about Jalen Watson getting that one-handed snag, OBJ style. That's the kind of thing you can build off of going against a superior matchup. Momentum. Because as much as the Jaguars are a good offense, the Bengals are a better offense, have better quarterback, better receivers, all that stuff. But Eddie, this game, if the Chiefs decide to go into this and play a more conservative style approach on offense and play their defense the way they've been playing it, it's not going to matter who the receivers are because Joe Burrow's going to be getting hit in the backfield.
Yeah, I'm not saying the Bengals are going to blow out the Chiefs. I don't think that's going to happen. It's going to come down to yet again another field goal, another probably last second safety or something. It's gonna come down to a big play in the fourth quarter and I think the Bengals are gonna capitalize on that. I think the Chiefs somehow, some way, they always make a mistake against the Bengals, and I think that can very well happen this game. I think the Bengals are playing better football closing the season than the Chiefs are. I'm not saying that they're by far the better team. I'm just saying they're playing better football as a unit, as a team than what the Chiefs are.
Were you impressed by the Bengals against the Ravens?
I disagree, man. They're not playing better football than the Chiefs.
I'm just saying, and again, I think we'd all agree that Bengals game was more about the Bills not being a great team than the Bengals being a great team. I think you would agree to that because you just saw the week previous they survived a backup quarterback in Baltimore or against Baltimore in their house. They had to have an historic play survive that game.
And if I'm being honest, they didn't even play better football out until the very end of those games when they played us. We 2 times in those 3 games we had double-digit leads and a 7-point lead. They've never had a double-digit lead on us.
I've played the Chiefs every no.
But I was coming against what you were saying about them playing better football down the stretch. I know that the record over the last 10 weeks is better than the Chiefs, but have they really been playing down this last stretch? Because again, against a Ravens team that was very much hobbled, very much banged up, did not have their superstar quarterback. They won by 7, and that 7 was decided on an historic 99-yard return fumble.
You gotta agree that defense is. I think that defense could be better than the Chiefs' defense.
I agree to that too, but I'm saying that in matchups, you saw the Ravens and backup quarterback 155
and it's also a division.
yards.
It's also a divisional game, so there's a lot of factors that can go into that.
I would buy into that if Lamar was playing. Lamar wasn't playing. Like you look at the divisional thing when your best players are on the field. Like we talk about the Chargers and Chiefs and how the games are always close. If the games are close without Justin Herbert, that's a problem. But when Justin Herbert's out there and the games are close, it makes sense because he's a top 10 quarterback. When Huntley is your quarterback in a road divisional game and it's coming down to the wire and you have to have a play like that to win that game, that's a problem. That's something I can't refute. And I picked the Bengals last week, but it wasn't because I was so much more confident in the Bengals. It's because I had no faith in the Bills. I didn't think they could win that matchup. This matchup is much closer to Trevor's point about how the Chiefs have had substantial leads against this Bengals team. They find ways to shoot themselves in the foot, and the Bengals outlast them. It's not because the Bengals came and won these games.
They take advantage of those moments.
Have you ever seen in these Bengals games where the Chiefs are down 27-10? No, but I've seen the Chiefs up 21-10.
Yeah.
I've seen them up 21-3 against this Bengals team. The Bengals have never done that to the Chiefs.
No.
So this has come down to, like you said.
As good as their offense is, they've never been able to run it up on our defense, bro.
Right.
They've never been able to do it.
And this is a better defense now than it's ever been in these previous 3 games.
We put up 21 points in one half against them last year in the AFC Championship. 21 points in the first half. If anybody's going to have the ability to run it up on somebody, it's going to be the Chiefs able to run it up on them. We have the better offense.
And even in the regular season matchup last season, it took the Bengals to have a 3rd and 27 conversion to get in field goal range to win that game.
I just feel like, to me, in my opinion, I do believe that the Bengals are playing a better football going into the stretch. It's going to be a close matchup. I'm not going to I want the Chiefs to win. Obviously, I'm a Chiefs fan.
I'm not even trying to convince you. I'm just bringing context.
Does having Hardman and Tony in this matchup that we didn't have them last time in this matchup kind of
swing?
I would say
that's a big one.
I don't know about Hardman. I don't know if he's going to. I know he's saying he's going to play, but I don't know how much.
Limited snaps.
I don't know how much he's going to play. How effective he's gonna be when he's on the field. So I
always
really don't know. But with Kadarius Toney, I could see a little bit of a difference there, but I don't think it could be enough of a difference to help beat a Bengals team that is motivated. So
can I ask you a question? You think this game's gonna be won in the trenches?
yeah,
Okay. Which offensive line is better and going to be more motivated in this game?
Well, I don't think that's a question.
The Chiefs, right?
Chiefs, yeah.
Which defensive line is better and going to be more motivated in this game?
Clearly the Chiefs.
The Chiefs' defensive line is much better than their defensive line.
yeah, but
We were
I
second
would
in
say,
sacks.
But I would say that
And number one in pressures.
But then you can argue that the Bengals defense is motivated because of a hobbled Patrick Mahomes.
You think they're going to be more motivated
can
than the Chiefs' defensive line?
They can take
With
advantage
all that
of that.
trash talk being going on?
I'm
saying
not-
our offensive line is better and more motivated, and our defensive line is more talented by far and more motivated.
And
so
to
this
that
game's going to be
point-
one of the trenches.
But
I'm
at the
betting
same,
on that.
But at the same time, they were just as motivated going into Week 13, and
No,
what happened?
I disagree. There was not nearly as much trash talk. There was more, well, we made the mistake.
Justin
Justin
Reed was
Reed
one
made the
talking.
mistake by talking shit
He
when
gave
he had
them all
no
the
reason
ammunition.
to be.
Yeah.
He gave them that bulletin board
Oh,
material.
and here's another thing.
And we were banged
Here's
up.
another thing we haven't brought up. The Bengals might very well not only be without three of their starting offensive linemen, they might be without Hayden Hurst.
He's going to be banged up for sure.
Who's been their third down receiver. You saw against
I
the
think he
Bengals.
was a full participant off
No,
Friday.
he wasn't. He's still questionable for this game. Hayden Hurst might not play in this game. He has a calf injury. I'm saying. You saw what he did against the Bills.
I think he's
on
gonna
third
play,
and
but yeah.
longs.
Yeah, I think
he was the one that Joe Burrow was going to. You can look that up. But last I heard, he is questionable for this game. So there's a lot that the Bengals could be without, and the Chiefs are adding so much to it. Like you saw the pressure they were getting to Patrick Mahomes in that Week 13 game. When you're without your best offensive lineman, that does make sense. They will have Joe Tooney back in this game. They did not have him against the Bengals.
I think this game's going to be close, but I'm saying if anyone has an edge, I think the Chiefs have the edge here. Granted, I know we've lost last 3 times, but if anyone has the mental edge, I just think the Chiefs have more momentum and more reason to go win this game.
Yeah, so Hayden Hurst, full participant Friday. So,
Okay, Friday he was good. Okay.
So he's good. He's not questionable.
Okay.
Travis Kelce is questionable.
Sure.
So that's who's questionable. So
Yeah,
don't
it's
think anyone's
back
doubting
spasm.
he's
It was
playing
back
or not.
spasm. That was confirmed yesterday. I think it might be some gamesmanship going on. I also think because of the fact if you put him down as questionable on the list, he doesn't have to talk to the media. And I don't think Travis wanted to talk to the media yesterday. I think everything is just so tense and high. Everything is so high pressured right now. I don't think Travis Kelce was going to be able to get through a press conference without giving ammunition.
Travis Kelce's not one of those guys that I'm worried about. He can have a broken back. He can have a fracture in his back. He's going to be out there. He's going to play.
Yeah,
Travis
he's gonna
Kelce,
try-
all he does is get
gonna
100
try-
yards
no
and a
offense to
touchdown in the
Travis
postseason.
Kelce, this game's not going to come down to what Travis Kelce
Right.
does or doesn't do.
Right.
This game's going to come down to what Trevor was just alluding to, what I brought up
trenches.
in my opening monologue. This is going to come down to what happens between the defensive lines and the offensive lines.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs have significant advantages at both areas. That's what's going to come down to, and especially when you have a hobbled Patrick Mahomes. Even more emphasis. So this team, all week long, the Chiefs all week long knew, we're not going to be able to rely on the Magic Mahomes. Maybe not as much. So now it's us to come out here and play physical football. Yeah. It's for us to go and get Joe Burrow like we couldn't last. You don't think for the last 12 months, Chris Jones has been sitting here just waiting for that opportunity to finally get that chance, especially with if Leo Collins and Alex Kappa and Jonah Williams were playing in this game, I couldn't confidently sit here and say we have the advantage because their offensive line would be very good at that point, but they're not there. That's the difference. That's why Chris Jones has zero excuse not to be in that backfield getting a couple sacks in this game. Frank Clark, Karlaftis, Dunlap, Dana, Saunders, all these guys out here doing their thing. There's no excuse for them. They have to dominate this because if they don't, the Bengals will win this game.
For sure.
If they are not going to get Joe Burrow down, if they don't have 3 to 4 sacks in this game, the Bengals are going to win this game because Joe Burrow will pick a young secondary apart if he has time. Simple as that. So let's get to the key players of this
It's
game.
gonna be a battle, man.
Let's get to the key players of this game. I'm going to give you guys my 2. And I know it's kind of a cop-out because I know sometimes I go positionally, but I think the 2 things that come down to this game is the Chiefs' offensive line. If they give Patrick Mahomes protection, if they get those bubble screens out there where Joe Tooney and Creed Humphrey and Orlando Brown are out there on the left side blocking for Jerick McKinnon on a dump screen, or Isaiah Pacheco on a draw play, if they are out there getting protection for those guys and creating holes for them, this offense is gonna drop 30-plus points in this game. I will say that right now. This offensive line plays at their best. The Chiefs are going to score over 30 points in this game because they've done it every single time they've made a statement this season. In fact, they've scored over 40 in those statement games against legit defenses. And those were on the road, by the way, I might add. The second one, and it's somebody I keep talking about, I just mentioned him a second ago. It is clear as day. It is Chris Jones. This is a game that can alter his career in more ways than one. He's played 13 postseason games with 0 sacks. That is not okay. Now, he played incredible against the Jaguars. He played incredible against the 49ers in the Super Bowl.
He's a big part of why Frank played great.
Yes, humongous part in all these games. He's been good in a lot of postseason games. The Chiefs need him to be great in this one. They need him to go back there and hit Joe Burrow and hit him all game long. He is the key to this game. Chris Jones is. Chris Jones plays a big game. Chiefs are rolling in this one. I'm not talking about just winning.
Yeah.
I know everybody talks about a close game. If Chris Jones is in the backfield all game, if he gets like 8-9 pressures like we've seen him do this season multiple times, if Joe Burrow's getting hit 15, 16 times in this game, the Chiefs are going to win this game by double digits because they don't have an offensive line that can protect Joe Burrow. And if the Chiefs are the defense that we know them to be all season, and they've had, like I said, 6 different games of 5+ sacks, they bring that defense to this game, they're blowing out the Bengals in this one. I say that confidently. And also, if we're looking at this from Chris Jones' perspective, he's in line to get a massive contract extension this offseason. He goes out there and plays big in an AFC championship and gets the Chiefs back to their 3rd Super Bowl in 5 years, and he's a part of all 3 trips. You better believe a 28-year-old, as great as he is, having an all-pro season like that, toppled off by another Super Bowl appearance, you better believe that dude's going to break the bank. Whether it's here in Kansas City or somewhere else, he's going to get paid. And then you also look at a legacy standpoint. You're talking about a man all of a sudden, just like that, becoming a Hall of Famer. I'm not saying that hyperbolically. Chris Jones has already had a career that is budding into a Hall of Fame career. He goes and does this against a team like this with all the hype behind the Bengals, all the support against the Bengals, and he wrecks this game single-handedly. He puts himself in that lore, and all of a sudden you're looking at Chris Jones as becoming a potential first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Trevor.
I'm going right back to the well. The guy I picked last week, who I expected to have a bigger game last week, but didn't. Kadarius Toney was not in this matchup last time. I think the secondary is in for a treat with Kadarius Toney. I think we're going to make it an emphasis to get him the ball. And McCall, too. If McColl's out there, I think they're going to try to get it to the speedsters' hands, the guys that they know can create plays after the catch and getting the ball in their hands quickly. I think that's going to be a massive part of our game plan. And I think Kadarius Toney is so shifty. And I think he's going to be a lot of trouble with his speed and his shiftiness against that secondary. It was a decent secondary, but they're a good tackling secondary, but he's really good at making tacklers miss. So I think I'm going to see I see a bunch of plays where he creates more yards after the catch, makes guys miss, and I think he has a good chance of scoring here. I really, really like Kadarius Toney here. I think he has a great game. Defensively, I think this is where we see the birth of a star. I think this is the moment for George Karlaftis. I think he's been coming on as of late. You've definitely seen the growth over the years, or over this season. Him learning a lot from Frank Clark, learning a lot from Chris Jones and guys, and learning new moves, developing the relentlessness that we know he has inside of him. His motor doesn't stop until the whistle's blown, and you love that about this kid. He's very quick too. And I think he's going to take advantage. And I know you said Chris Jones, and we talked about Frank Clark leading into this game and the role that he's on. I think that opens up a massive door for George Karlaftis to clean up. I think there's going to be a lot of emphasis from the offensive line of Cincinnati to make sure they don't let Frank Clark beat them on the edge with the speed, and they don't let Chris Jones blast up the middle. So they're going to have to double him. That opens up so many opportunities for George Karlaftis to go up there and clean up. Finish these plays that those guys are creating, forcing Joe Burrow to go towards him with the middle being pressured so much, and with that side of Frank Clark setting the edge on that side. That's going to make Joe Burrow move towards George Karlaftis on a lot of these plays, and I see a sack in this game. I see a big play in this game, maybe a forced fumble, maybe something, a good hit. A big play. I think this is the birth of a star for this defense of the Chiefs for years to come. I think this is the biggest stage for him to do that and take advantage of these big moments. And I think this is the game where we're like, okay, George Karlaftis is going to be our guy moving forward, and I think he's going to make a couple plays that ignites that fire in him, and is the birth of a star. So my guys, Kadarius Toney, a guy we didn't have in this matchup that I think is going to shine in this matchup. It's tough for that secondary to defend, and he's going to come up big, and I think George Karlaftis is going to be the birth of a star here.
I got 2 offensive players of mine. First is going to be Jamar Chase, obviously. The last 3 matchups, Jamar Chase has been a baller, has been a big reason why they put up points on the Chiefs. I mean, you can't go one-on-one against Jamar Chase. He's going to eat you alive at any point of the game if you go one-on-one. He's shown that before. If he evades a couple of tackles, he can take it to the house. He's that kind of player to where you can throw it for 5 yards and he'll take it to the house. Kind of like a Tyreek kind kind of player, but obviously Tariq speed, you can't match it. And then I'm gonna have Joe Burrow on this one, as well as my second key player. I think he's gonna have one hell of a game. Even with the offensive line injured, I know you guys make a big emphasis. I think he's gonna get the ball out quick. He's gonna have. I think Joe Mixon is gonna have a big receiving game. I think he's gonna be a quick scapegoat if Hayden Hurst is out. That could be a quick scapegoat for Joe Burrow. I think he's get the ball out quick, kind of like a Tom Brady. So we're gonna hate that all fucking game, and it's gonna work for the Bengals. So I can see Joe Burrow putting up a couple touchdowns, over 250. So we'll.
All right. Do you guys have your scores down?
I do.
Go ahead.
I have the Chiefs winning 36-30. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. I think both these offenses know each other well. I think the Chiefs defense or the Chiefs offense is just that much better than the Bengals. We can talk about how good the Bengals weapons are and how good Joe Burrow is, but they've yet to be better than the Chiefs offense has ever been. And since Burrow's been in the league, he's yet to lead an offense better than Patrick Mahomes has led, with or without Tyreek Hill. So our offense is better, and I think we're going to put up more points. And I think our defense will play just enough good defense to make a play or two to put them a little bit behind, and they'll be chasing our points. I know that they make great halftime adjustments defensively, but I expect Andy Reid to have a great game plan and a great attack with the addition of Kadarius Toney. I think Jody Fortson is going to play this game as well. I think having him in the red zone is huge. There's a chance he could probably score in this game. Throwing up a jump ball for him will be ideal. I like points in this game. I think there will be points. It's going to be very competitive. 36-30 Chiefs.
Give me 30-27 Bengals.
Give me your reasons, Eddie.
It's gonna be a close game. I think they're gonna be fighting for points. I think, like I said, the Chiefs secondary, Jamar Chase is gonna eat that secondary, especially how Spagnuolo likes to play Jamar Chase, which is that one-on-one, and I specify that because he's done it multiple times, and we all hate that. We all come here the next episode saying, how the fuck do you go one-on-one? Why do you put a rookie on Jamar Chase? So you have to put Snead on the best receiver here, and if he doesn't, Jamar Chase is going to do what he pleases. So I think Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase is going to have a great connection. You can also throw T. Higgins in there, having a good game. And like I said, Joe Mixon being the escape route for Joe Burrow if the pocket collapses. So it's going to be a close game, and it's going to come down to who can play better towards the end of the game. And obviously the Bengals I'll play the Chiefs in late in the game. So,
as I told you guys, the Chiefs have 6 games this season when they sacked a quarterback 5+ times. In those games, they allowed 21 points per game. I think the Chiefs are going to get to Joe Burrow 5 times in this game. I think they sack him 5+ times in this game. And I don't think the Bengals are going to score more than 21 points in this game. I have the Chiefs. Look, I'm right along Trevor in this one. I all week long, I let everyone talk because, again, I respect this Bengals team immensely. They're the team that beats Patrick Mahomes more than anybody else has. But listening to people talk as if the Chiefs are the ones that are coming into this game with the inefficiencies, with the deficiencies that they have, the Bengals have, it's almost as if they pretend like the rosters are flipped, as if Burrow's accomplished the things Patrick Mahomes has accomplished, and if they don't have, as if the Chiefs don't have the dominance in the offensive line differences and the defensive line differences. I know the outcomes are what they are in the past, but with everything that's been said about this team and knowing what the Chiefs do in moments like this when they are told you can't do shit, or this team that's coming in is going to beat you, they always, almost every single time, go out there and make that statement. I have the Chiefs winning this game by 13 points.
I love it.
I think the Chiefs are going to win this game 34-21 because they're going to come out here as the healthier team, as crazy as that sounds, the more prepared team, in my opinion, as crazy as that might sound. I think Andy Reid's going to coach his dick off in this game. I think Andy Reid's going to come out here with a statement. He called his offensive line out on Tom Brady's podcast.
He wants him to feel that.
He called them out.
Yeah.
Andy Reid spent almost 14 years in his NFL career as an offensive line coach. He spent a long time as an offensive line coach. He knows what to do. He knows how to press those buttons. He knows what he created with this offensive line. I think those guys are going to go out there and play nasty, physical football. I think the Chiefs are going to play nasty, physical football. I think the Chiefs are going to have over 140 rushing yards in this game. I don't think they're going to turn the ball over once in this game. They're going to dominate time of possession. They're going to score every time they're in the red zone. Whether it's a touchdown or a field goal, the Chiefs are going to be as efficient as they have been all season because they are locked into this one, knowing the significance of this game and what it means if they were to lose this game, what they're going to have to hear all offseason if they lose this game. They're not losing this game. The Chiefs are not going to lose this game, and they're going to make a statement and letting everybody know why they've hosted the last 5 AFC championships. Chiefs 34, Bengals 21. And I'll leave it there.
I like it.
Let me know what you guys think in the comments on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, the notification button, and please let us know what you guys think. I want your guys' thoughts. I want your guys' opinions, whether you agree or disagree or kind of in the middle when it comes to any of our takes. We want to hear from you guys. That's what the Spoken is all about, and we appreciate that in the meantime. But in the meantime, we have one more order of business to get to for the 203rd time on the Spoken podcast. Eddie, Trevor, what's it called?
Hold this L.
Each and every episode, we finish off each and every episode with a series of L's in the world of sports. Whether those L's in the world of sports are friendly or not so friendly L's in the world of sports, we promise you, who is ever holding those L's in the world of sports deserve those L's in the world of sports. Mr. Eddie Ortiz, Mr. Yo Yo Yo, who's holding the L for you this week, and why is it F1?
Not F1. I should for them fucking ticket prices, bro. God damn. Fucking $10,000 for a good Vegas weekend. Fuck y'all. No, but I'm gonna give it to the Mexican national team. Why am I gonna give it to the Mexican national team? For the simple fact that they have the opportunity of a lifetime to get a great head coach to manage them into the 2026 World Cup, and they blew it. They said, "No, we don't need them. We don't want them," and they're going for local talent who have not really succeeded, I guess you can say. Even the local talent that succeeded, like coaching wise, they're looking the other way. Like, what? You're thinking about bringing back somebody that, he did good when he was here in his tenure, when we went to the 2014 World Cup in Brazil, but he left because he wasn't fit to coach the national team. So they had to part ways a couple years after that. So why would you go back to something you didn't like? Why would you get remarried to somebody who wasn't a perfect fit for you? And then obviously this last 4 years, this last World Cup, it wasn't the best of decisions. Bringing in El Tata, he did his thing early on, but then he stuck to the old ways of bringing players that weren't in top shape. That he was bringing in old players that to save face, and I just wasn't a fan of that. I mean, I said I'll give him a shot. We'll wait to the World Cup. We're always a different team when it comes to the World Cup, and then this World Cup, it was just complete shit. And now you have a time to bring one of the top head coaches in the world in Bielsa, and you're saying no, not interested, because one of his points was he was going to take over the national team. That was going to be his team. He was not going to take input from nobody. And you said no because you want to put players in there to get money for money game.
Right.
And that's just not right if you want to compete with the world's best in a World Cup, especially in 2026 when the World Cup is here in the US, Mexico, and Canada. You want to be your best, but apparently the people in charge of the Mexico national team don't think like we do. You know, they don't see it like we do. All they see is money. So yeah, that pissed me off. Especially the coaches that they have in mind, pisses me off. It's gonna be hopefully it's a forgettable for next 4 years. I don't want to fucking remember these next 4 years because they're gonna be atrocious. So for that reason, people in charge of the Mexico national team in general, do me a favor and hold this L.
Trevor Twiddle, who's holding the L for you this week?
So as leading into this Chiefs Bengals matchup, as much as we're all hoping and as much as we want to as Chiefs fans to see the trash talk backfire, we've had plenty of examples of that happening throughout sports. And just my L is going to emphasize on that because just recently in this past weekend with the Niners and the Cowboys game, one Micah Parsons after they won that game against the great Buccaneers team. He immediately was asked about the matchup coming up with the Niners, and he claimed he wanted all the smoke. He claimed that this, quote unquote, this is who I wanted in that game. Obviously, we know what happened. We know what happened in that matchup with the Cowboys and the Niners. The better team won. The team I think we all had them winning on this show. A great matchup, a great defensive showdown. But we all know the Cowboys do what they do best in the postseason, and they lost. And we all saw the Trent Williams picture with him pointing at the Cowboys fans, laughing and stuff. All those things, those are great pictures. But none was better, I think, or more poetic than the shit talk going, biting you in the ass for Micah Parsons than Deebo Samuel's taken to the Instagram machine, and when he quoted "Don't poke the bear," and then tagged that picture of Micah Parsons saying, and that quote with that picture saying, "This is who I wanted." I love stories like that. And the reason I'm using that one is because I'm hoping to have a post of my own coming up soon, something like that. With all the trash talk we've been dealing with, I just felt like that was right on par with what we're dealing with right now, even to a bigger degree than that. That's really chump change compared to what's going on with all the slander that we've been dealing with here in this city this week. But I love a story like that. I love a story when trash talk's being said, and then the ones that kind of kept their cool and kept quiet, kind of just took care of business and was able to relay that and remind them, no, this is what you wanted. You wanted this. Don't poke the bear. You can't. There's nothing you can say to that after that point. You lost. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping. I'm kind of setting that up as a hopeful future storyline I can tell myself in these next coming days. So for that, Micah Parsons, Cowboys fans, all the hooting and hawing you guys been doing, do me a solid favor and hold this L.
I wanted to do a funny L. I like doing those, and it's always fun to. I hate getting receipts at stores, but I love getting receipts on Twitter, and I love getting receipts in the sports world. I had difficulty overlooking a very serious L though in the NFL. We saw the news that the Carolina Panthers decided to hire Frank Reich as their next head coach, which is a great hire. I like Frank Reich. I think he's a good offensive mind. And I understand why a team would be big on him because he had some decent success in Indianapolis, even though he never really got himself a true franchise quarterback in that time that he was there. Andrew Luck retired very early in the stages of them being a duo, so we don't really know what he could have been with Andrew Luck. So I get it. But here's the problem with this hire. And it's not so much the hire, it's about who didn't get hired. And it was the guy that was in-house as the interim head coach for the final 12 weeks of the season, and Steve Wilks. So Steve Wilks inherited a 1-4 Panthers team after Matt Rule got fired. The same Matt Rule that the Panthers spent all that money on, got him out of college football, believed he was the next guy. I bought into the Matt Rule hype. I thought this guy was going to be the next awesome head coach in football. 100% wrong. Steve Wilks takes a 1-4 team over, and they go 6-6 with a rotation at quarterback, injuries all across the team, and a very tough schedule. They went 6-6, and their defense got significantly better as the season went on. That's where Steve Wilks his mind is at as a defensive coordinator / head coach. But herein lies the problem now in the league, and I have to address it. There are 32 head coaching jobs in the NFL, and only 2 of them are black. And for a league that has over 75% of their league black players, to only have 2 black head coaches in this league it's impossible. It's literally impossible for that to take place. It's like, and I know Nick Wright said this before, somebody, I think it may have been Nick Wright, that's like NHL, who has like 89% white players. Imagine if only 2 of their head coaches, they have 32 teams as well, imagine if only 2 of their head coaches were white. Their managers in NHL. How wild that would be. Yeah. If 29, 30 of the managers and coaches in the NHL were black guys, that'd be very odd considering it. And I know that black people in this country are still considered a minority percentage-wise because there's a lot more white people in America. But in a league like this where we all know that players are comfortable with people they grew up in the same areas or they look alike, for that to still not be a thing where you're starting to see the numbers rise, where black assistant coaches aren't getting the same opportunities as people that have failed at their previous stops, like Josh McDaniels, like Frank Reich, like a lot of these other guys, Nathaniel Hackett, who again was the worst candidate imaginable, and if it wasn't for Jeff Saturday getting an opportunity, who might still end up being the head coach for the Colts over who? Oh, that's right, Eric Bieniemy. How wild is that? We have a real problem here in the NFL, man. The Rooney Rule did not work. It was a joke to begin with. It was a farce. It was just basically to be put in place to make it look like everyone's got equal opportunities. That is 100% false. It is not equal opportunity in the NFL. It's about who you know and who you've been with. And we know that everyone's got buddies and they're rubbing shoulders with people, and these black assistants are told, well, you got to be this for a certain amount of time. And then you have guys like Eric Bieniemy, who's led the number one offense in the NFL for the last 5 seasons, still not get a chance to be a head coach in this league. You have guys like DeMeco Ryans, who may get an opportunity, but where? Is he going to be the next Lovie Smith?
Brian Flores.
Is he going to be the next Lovie Smith where he has to inherit a shit team and there's still shit and he gets fired because of it? That's not a fair opportunity. That's not equal opportunity. And Steve Wilkes, in my opinion, should have been given an opportunity to give himself to see what he can do with that Panthers team next year. I understand why the Panthers went with Frank Reich. It's an offensive league and he's an offensive mind. But even to Frank Reich's credit, do you know where the Colts offense ranked this season before he got fired? Dead last. They had the dead last worst offense in football when Frank Reich was their head coach this season. And they just went and spent all that money on Matt Ryan the year before they spent all that money on Carson Wentz. And it still didn't work. So the NFL's got a real problem here, man, and not giving the color barrier is still very immense in the NFL, and it's a real problem, and it's something we can't ignore and not talk about. So for that, NFL, do me a solid and hold this L. You guys ready for a great weekend of football?
Let's go.
I know I am. And I'm telling you, I'm with Trevor. I have not been more excited and more confident about a game, a Chiefs game, in over 2 years. It's been over 2 years since I felt this way. And it's, again, primarily because of the fact that I know my team is getting doubted. The Chiefs haven't been doubted like this since the 2018 AFC Championship game against the Patriots.
Well, we've been doubted all year, to be honest.
Even, yes, but I'm saying in a game of this magnitude.
The 1 seed, my friend.
And even in that game against the Patriots in the 2018, it was an early 2019, but you know what I mean, 2018 season. Even in that game against Tom Brady and the Dynasty Patriots, the Chiefs were 3-point favorites. Mm-hmm. They're 1.5-point favorites in this one. It's essentially a pickup all week. And this Bengals team hasn't accomplished anything close to what that Patriots team did. And at that time, the Chiefs hadn't accomplished anything at that point either. The Chiefs are being disrespected. I understand if people want to pick the Bengals. Eddie, you have every right to pick the Bengals. They've won 3 straight games. Mm-hmm. But for people to sit here and doubt that the Chiefs can get it done, because even to Eddie's credit, you could see a scenario where the Chiefs could very well win this game. But people are closing the door. Patrick Mahomes banged up. Chiefs they just can't beat the Bengals. I'm just telling you guys right now, maybe I'll look like an absolute fool in a week's time on this show. I'm telling you guys right now that I feel every bit of confidence that we're going to see the best version of the Chiefs in this game, because this is the team that thrives on doubt, that thrives on negativity. When people say they can't do it, when I remember, you guys remember too, when they went to that Bucs game, everybody was picking the Bucs in that game. Oh, this is the number one defense. Tom Brady, he doesn't want to be here, but they're hell-bent to win. They were 3-1 going into that game. And the Chiefs just worked that ass from wire to wire. We saw in the San Francisco 49ers, one of the best defenses in football. Everyone's getting healthy. Nick Bosa's back. Remember, we're sitting there going, God damn, they got everybody back. Yep. And the Chiefs went in there and worked that ass. The Chiefs are at home now being disrespected in their own house. People are trying to rename that shit. Just please stay tuned, guys. That's all I'm going to tell you guys. I'm not sitting here saying Patrick Mahomes is going to go out there and be Magic Mahomes, but I'm telling you right now, Patrick Mahomes is going to put on a show. From the pocket, from outside the pocket, whatever you want to say. He's going to go out there and he's going to do his thing, but this game's going to be won in the trenches by the Chiefs. By the offensive line and Chris Jones. Mark that shit down. Let us know what you guys think. It's been a fun show today. It's been a long show, but this is what we do, man. We're here to provide content, and we go into details for you guys. And we appreciate every single one of you that has supported us at this point, and we appreciate all of you that are going to support us after this awesome show that we just gave you guys. So for Trevor Twidwell, for Eddie Ortiz, for the great Clay Windler that puts all this together on the back end, I am Lance Twidwell. The Spoken Podcast, episode 1203 is done, finished, and finito. And until we're here 1 week's time talking about the Chiefs facing up in their third Super Bowl in 5 seasons, we out of this bitch.